Good morning. This is Allison Pickard, Chair, District 2. The June 5th, 2020 meeting of the Anne Arundel County Council is now in session. Today we begin final deliberations on the FY21 proposed budget for Anne Arundel County. We will start by hearing from the County Auditor, after which we will take a recess and then come back together to hear from the administration. Madam Secretary, can you please do the roll call this morning?
Mr. Volkey?
Here.
Mr. Pruski?
Here.
Ms. Fiedler?
Here.
Ms. Rodvian?
Here.
Ms. Hare?
Present.
Ms. Lacey?
Present.
Ms. Pickard?
Here.
Madam Auditor, I believe is connecting now, so
Present.
thank you. Madam Chair, all council and the auditor are present.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Please pause this morning for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance, both led by Councilwoman Ms. Fiedler.
Thank you. If we could all take a moment to bow our heads in whatever faith we recognize and follow. We come together in this hour asking for your blessing and help as we gather together. We pray for your guidance in the matters at hand and ask that you would help conduct our work with a spirit of willingness and commitment. Give us the desire to find ways to excel in our work all day and every day forward. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please read the Open Meetings Act statement.
The county attorney has asked that I read the following statement. The Maryland Open Meetings Act, a state law, requires public meetings to be open to the public and to be held in places reasonably accessible to individuals who would like to attend these meetings. General Provisions Article Section 3102C. The virtual format of this meeting of the County Council is due to the COVID-19 emergency and is necessary in light of the serious health risks associated with public gatherings, as well as the governor's various executive orders limiting public gatherings. While a virtual meeting of this type was not envisioned by the Open Meetings Act, steps have been taken to ensure that this virtual meeting includes alternate accessibility features that the Open Meetings Act Compliance Board and the courts have reviewed and approved, such as having a call-in phone number that allows anyone with a telephone to call and listen to the meeting, broadcasting the meeting with video and audio on cable TV and on the web, and allowing written public comments to the legislation be filed with the clerk and considered by the council. The County Office of Law has opined that the public access provided by this technology makes this virtual meeting reasonably accessible to the public and therefore complies with the Open Meetings Act.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Again, this is Allison Pickard, District 2, Chair of the County Council. Is there any item any council member would like to place on the agenda at this time? Seeing none. Because this is a virtual meeting, we cannot provide reasonable seating facilities for the public or the news media, and we cannot be physically located in Annapolis, the county seat. May I have a motion to suspend rules 3-103 relating to the location of meetings, 3-105 relating to the reasonable seating facilities for the public, and 3-106 relating to reasonable seating facilities for the news media?
Councilwoman Lacey, so moved.
May I have a second?
Councilwoman Rodvian, second.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll on the suspension of rules 3-01, 3-105, and 3-106.
Mr. Volkey?
Nay.
Mr. Pruski?
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler?
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian?
Aye.
Ms. Hare?
Aye.
Ms. Lacey?
Aye.
Ms. Pickard?
Aye.
6 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative. Motion to suspend rules 3-103, 3-105, and 3-106 is passed.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. At this time, we will now hear the auditor's recommendations regarding the FY21 operating and capital budgets. Madam Auditor, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairwoman Pickard and members of the County Council. For the record, I'm Susan Smith, the County Auditor. I'm here to provide our comments on the County Executive's fiscal year 2020 operating budget and capital budget program. Last year was the perfect storm of budgets with all new people and with half the time needed to review the budget due to our office flooding. This year, we worked with the administration to receive information about capital early. As we did this year, I was looking at this year offices and
Excuse
then
me, Madam Auditor,
yes.
we're having a little trouble with your audio.
Okay.
You're fine, and then you're garbled for a minute, and then you're fine again.
Yeah, it says my speaker is, please check your connection. Great. I will have to try to figure this out. I don't know if it's speaker.
Madam Auditor, are you hardwired to, are you using Wi-Fi or are you hardwired?
Hardwired. I'm hardwired, but it says my internet connection is unstable.
Well, we'll have to take it slow. We'll let you know when you need to repeat yourself.
Okay, I will try to start. Okay, so COVID-19 resulted in emergency legislative meetings and delayed legislation, resulting in working meetings, time working out logistics for work, and countless hours Zoom. Each member of this team has hours in reviewing this budget. They did this while trying to navigate the many challenges of COVID-19, including homeschooling without the ability to have neighbors or babysitters help, and dealing with family or friends that have been affected directly. They have worked many hours over the time they are paid for, sacrificing time with their families and friends, and our comments and recommendations would not be possible without their dedication and teamwork. Not only do they tackle anything that is thrown to them, they step up and offer to do more. I can't say enough about how proud I am of this team, who has grown in knowledge over the past year. Michelle Folair, Terry Gibson, Marissa Riddle, Kate Holmes, Syed Takvi, Joshua Parsley, our new IT audit manager, Phil Demick, who started the day after we switched to teleworking. And theirs for putting up with us over the past few weeks, and God, who has provided us peace in a very stressful time. I would also like to thank for the past few weeks. The Department of Public Works worked with us to provide capital early so we could prep for the budget as we did in the past, and has answered countless questions regarding the capital budget and program. The Office of Budget shared their tool for extracting data from our county financial system and coordinated the answering of auditors' questions for both the operating budget and the capital budget and program. The first part of my presentation includes general comments on the budget and its contents. I will then highlight some items included in the budget this year. After that, I will move on to our recommendations. Our job is fact-finding, so we do not make judgment calls as to whether a new item, service, or pay package should be added or whether an existing item or service should be discontinued. For the operating budget, we will make recommendations to reduce the operating budget when we conclude that a new or existing item, service, is budgeted too high. We will also make recommendations to reduce the operating budget if, based on our analysis, their actual expenditures we believe they can accomplish their current service with less funds budgeted. When we look at the capital budget and program, we will make recommendations to reduce the capital project budget when we conclude that the budget is higher than the ultimate cost of the project, and we will push funding requests to subsequent years in the program to align with the period we anticipate the expense. We also ensure that adequate funding for a capital project to proceed and look at the impact on debt affordability and bring to the attention of the council things that we think they should consider. Thus, a lack of recommendation to reduce the operating or capital budget does not mean that the auditor agrees with or the planned spending, just that we agree with the fact funding matching that planned spending. As you know, the council can reduce the budget, but can only add back to reserve or OPEB reserves. You can give additional funding to the Board of Education, but only to the extent the Board of Education requested the funds. Now for my general comments. I'm going to try to share my screen. Let me know.
I believe Ms. Corby is going to work with you on that.
Okay. Let me know if it's full. Is it full screen? I have it on my big, it is fitting?
Yes, it is coming up full screen.
Sorry. Let me find my place. Okay. So on May 1st, the Spending Affordability Committee delivered its report to Council, which provided its recommendations for the fiscal year 2021 spending and general fund debt limit. I have provided calculations in my written comments showing that the proposed budget is within the Spending Affordability Committee's recommended spending limit by 17.7 million. That would be the first row. On this page, you have a chart comparing the Spending Affordability Committee recommendations and the proposed general fund spending and a proposed operating budgets for the past couple of years. For fiscal year 2021, the recommended fiscal year 21 general fund revenue spending is $1,698 million. When you add available general fund balance being put to use for this budget of $37.8 million, and contributions to the Revenue Reserve Fund of $1 million, you come up with an adjusted recommended fiscal year 21 spending of $1,737 million. The general fund spending per the proposed budget is $1,719 million. The proposed 20 spending less than the recommendation is $17.7 million. I'm rounding.
Madam Auditor, I apologize for interrupting. While it looks full on my screen, I'm told that maybe some aren't. Have you hit full screen on yours?
Yeah, it's full screen. It's on my monitor, so I can. Yeah, it's up at the full screen.
Okay, thank you.
Are you seeing does it say spending affordability in a chart?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay. With that said, the Spending Affordability Committee prepared its recommendation for COVID-19, which is the significant impact on the economy and the potential personal income for fiscal year 2021. But businesses reported closing doors during stay-at-home orders, and many individuals losing their jobs. We have seen record levels of unemployment filings in a very short period of time, and businesses struggling to stay afloat. As a county, we have increased spending in the areas of purchasing PPE, community services, and moving employees to teleworking. The county has also had to redirect personnel resources in a very short time. While the federal government has provided relief funding for the immediate future, the largest portion of that funding is for expenses through the end of the calendar year. While the stay-at-home orders are released, there's a lot of uncertainty regarding the long-term implications. We still do not have a vaccine, so many people may be reluctant to get back to business, which will further put stress on the economy. Plus, returning to status quo might result in another surge in COVID-19. I believe the majority of people conclude that rising personal income growth 0.7% in fiscal year 21 is unrealistic, including the Spending Affordability Committee. So I've also added a spreadsheet in your packet that shows what the recommendation would have been had the Spending Affordability Committee anticipated 1% personal income growth, as the county executive did in his.
Madam Auditor?
Yes, still can't hear me?
Well, you're garbling up. I'm curious, I'm wondering if you might want to call in on through your mobile phone to use your audio through the phone.
Oh, one sec.
Oh.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'm getting instructions now. If you give me 1 minute, I will come back on and we will.
Just say, we just need to pause for just a moment, I guess.
Yeah, well, we're going to take a pause so we can make sure Madam Auditor's audio is working properly.
Okay.
And Madam Auditor, what you're going to need to do is you need to sign out, leave the meeting, and sign back in.
Okay.
And they will work with you to get you set up.
Okay.
Okay, good morning again. This is Allison Pickard, Chair. Madam Auditor, are you ready to resume?
Can anybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
I can't hear you guys, but you can hear me. Thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay, all right. So I'm going to just start and have Joanne call me if you need me to be quiet. All right. So let's see where I leave off.
Madam Auditor.
Okay, so I've added a spreadsheet on page 3 of your packet that shows what the recommendations would have been had the Spending Affordability Committee anticipated a 1% personal income growth, as the county executive did in his proposed budget, a flat or 0% growth, and if the personal income growth declines by 2% in the upcoming fiscal year. In these scenarios, the county executive's proposal would exceed the would-be recommendation of the Spending Affordability Committee had they used similar calculations based on revised expected personal income growth. In a normal recession, there is a decline in revenues and increase in unemployment, followed by an increase in revenue over time during the rebuilding period. On page 4 of your packet, I can move back. Okay. I have included a graph of the county's total revenues over the past 20 plus years from 2007 through 2019. You will see the last recession in fiscal year 2008 and 2009. On page 5, you can see that for property tax, there is a steady growth, and the last recession did not materially impact property taxes. On page 6, however, you will see that the recession did impact income taxes about a year after the recession in fiscal years 2009 and 2010. That is because we only collect about 40% of the current year's taxes in the current year, with the rest being collected in the following year. On page 7, you will see the impact of the recordation and transfer tax revenue, which has the most dramatic impact as it was cut in half and took quite a while to rebuild. With COVID-19, there was an immediate increase in unemployment and decline in revenue, as opposed to a steady decline. With that said, the county's fiscal year 2020 revenue will exceed both the fiscal year 19 revenues and the fiscal year 20 budget estimate due to the healthy economy at the beginning of the fiscal year and the county's income tax rate increases. Most predict we will see slower increases as we reopen due to a lack of confidence and lack of immediate reemployment of the public and due to businesses that could not survive the stay-at-home or the continued restrictions. We will all most likely see both ups and downs in the immediate future and for some time as we see the impact both on businesses and the public, especially if we have another surge of cases of COVID-19. In fiscal year 21, we will still see impact of the revenues offset by the county income tax rate increases that roll in next year. The The county executive's budget includes both revenues and available fund balance to fund its fiscal year 21 operating budget expenditures. I will start with the revenues. The county executive based its estimated income tax revenue on a 4% decline in personal income in calendar year 2020, followed by a 1% increase in personal income in calendar year 2021. The county executive's budget also anticipates a 2.27% increase in total county revenue over fiscal year 20. So this is due primarily to the calendar year 2020 income tax revenue rate increases, of which approximately 44% will be initially recognized in fiscal year 21. Each year, as part of the budget review process, the auditor's office projects significant revenue sources for the current fiscal year. Based on our fiscal year 20 revenue projections, we determined that the fiscal year 20 revenue estimate of $1,644 million included in the proposed budget is reasonable. The auditor's office also uses the current year figures and other factors such as historical trending, economic growth and decline, and interest rates to project revenues for the upcoming budget year. The projection of the upcoming budget year's revenues serves as a reasonableness check on the revenues included in the proposed budget. We discuss significant differences with the budget office and make sure we understand their assumptions and conclude if they are reasonable. Our primary concern for the upcoming budget year's revenues is to ensure that the budget office has not made any errors or unreasonable assumptions that would have overstated revenues, which would put the budget out of balance and result in a negative general fund balance at the end of the year. While there are a lot of factors that could impact the county's revenues in the upcoming fiscal year, we determined that the proposed budgeted revenues are reasonable based on their assumptions. I also included in your packet the income tax rates by county and the property tax rates by county over the past couple of years. Page 8 shows the county has the 4th lowest income tax rate, and page 9 shows the county has the 9th lowest property tax rate. Unlike last year, the income tax rate was not increased and the property tax did not exceed the property tax cap. So I do not plan on spending a lot of time discussing these rates today. The county's property tax rate used to support the property tax revenue in this budget and the income tax are the primary sources of revenue for the county's general fund. There are other taxes and fees that the county charges both for the general fund and for the utility fund that also factor into the burden of the tax on the county's residents. Therefore, these revenue sources cannot be looked at in a vacuum. Okay, tax rates. Along with the submitted annual budget and appropriation ordinance, the administration introduced several bills to establish tax rates that will provide the revenue to fund the fiscal year 21 budget appropriations. Bills 27 through 20 through 35 through 20 establish rates for special taxing districts, special community benefit districts, shore erosion control districts, and waterway improvement districts. Further, Bill number 36-20 provides the county property tax rate for the county, the city of Annapolis, and the city of Highland Beach. We reviewed the calculations of these rates and agree the rates will generate the revenue to support the fiscal year 21 appropriations request in the ABAO. The fiscal year 21 operating budget appropriates a transfer of $1 million to the Revenue Reserve Fund. The Revenue Reserve Fund balance cannot exceed 5% of general fund revenues. Based on the estimated fiscal year 21 revenue of $1,681 million, the reserve is capped at $84 million. Currently, the estimated ending revenue reserve fund balance for fiscal year 20 is approximately $80 million. With the $1 million planned contribution in fiscal year 21 and the projected interest revenue, the revenue reserve fund balance is projected to be approximately $82.7 million at the end of fiscal year 21, or $1.3 million below the cap. During fiscal year 2009 and fiscal year 2010, a total of $32.7 million was used from the Revenue Reserve Fund when the county did not meet its revenue projections and could not limit expenditures below that amount. The yellow line depicts the last revenue shortfall during this period. In addition to using the county's revenue reserve, the county pulled from other funds to make up the shortfall where projected revenues do not cover the expenditures, such as the garage working fund and the garage vehicle replacement fund. I do want to spend some time talking about the fund balance. The projection of the current fiscal year 2020 estimated revenues is also necessary to determine the amount of fund balance that the county will have at the end of the current year and how much that fund balance will be. If you recall, during our review of Bill 2520, we estimated that the county had a fund balance available to appropriate at the end of fiscal year 20 of approximately $27.5 million. And that bill appropriated $27 million of this fund balance, along with another $11.75 million of the Chief Administrative Officer's Contingency Fund, primarily to provide funds to the Health Department, with the remaining $75,000 being appropriated to social services. The funds appropriated to the Health Department were to be used to pay for COVID-19 related expenses, primarily while we waited for federal relief. The calculation of the available fund balance of $27.5 million was based on the county reaching its fiscal year 20 budgeted revenue and by utilizing the county's fiscal year 20 budgeted expenditures. You will see that the fiscal year 21 proposed budget is estimating that at the end of fiscal year 20, the actual fiscal year 20 revenues will exceed their estimates by approximately $800,000. Sorry about that. And the administration is estimating that their actual fiscal year 20 expenditures will be $9 million or $9.4 million less than their budgeted expenditures. As stated previously, we determined that their estimate of fiscal year 20 revenue is reasonable based on their assumptions. However, the other very important piece of the equation is that in order to have $37.7 million in fund balance available at the end of fiscal year 2020 to appropriate in the fiscal year 21 budget, the county must keep its current year's expenditures at or below their estimate of $1,687 million. As of June 3rd, 2020, the county's general fund expenditures totaled about $1,548 million. Whereas only a month ago, there were often accruals that hit in June. The Auditor's Office also prepares projections for fiscal year 20 expenditures as part of our analysis of the budget. These estimates will be refined as we review the fourth quarter transfer bill, but currently our projected fiscal year 20 expenditures total $1,673 million. Currently, the Health Department business unit that was established to track COVID-19 expenditures has no expenditures and an encumbrance of $1.3 million. We were informed that the administration does not foresee any expenditures in this account at year end, so our estimates do not have any estimated expenditures for this business unit, and we are assuming that the $1.3 million in encumbrances will not be spent out of general fund. I caution you that you should pay close attention to fourth quarter transfers to ensure that the county stays below their estimated fiscal year 20 expenditures used in determining the fund balance available for the fiscal year 21 budget, to ensure that we don't end up with a deficit fund balance at the end of fiscal year 20 or fiscal year 21. Back to revenues. Last year, there were a number of utility rate increases. There are no utility rate increases in the budget bill this year. There are some rate increases that are built into the law. For instance, the EPF rate will increase as a percentage of water and sewer rates from 27.5% to 30% this year. And the capital facility connection charge will increase 10% from $7,729 to $8,501. Pull this up. I've included on page 12 the utility rate models from fiscal year 20. You will see that they had some planned rate increases for this year. Due to the economy, the administration decided to not take these rate increases. On page 13, I have included the utility rate models assumptions as of fiscal year 21. What I want to point out is in fiscal year 21 and 22, where it was 7 and 5, I believe, on the other sheet, it has now gone down to 0. But you will see that they will eventually need to start including rate increases for these funds. The next slide shows the utility rate current model operating fund balance. With the current model and the expected increases, they expect to go below the minimum cash balance that they want of 2 months operating expenses around fiscal year 24, and they will become negative in fiscal year 2031. The rate models always predict a continual rate increase starting at some point. Rates should be set to cover the utility operating fund expenditures. Each budget we have made cuts to push off these inevitable rate increases or to decrease the amount of rate increase that will be necessary in the future. This year is no different. We have made cuts in the utility operating fund further in our presentation and urge the council to take our cuts to the utility operating fund to push off or lessen these inevitable rate increases and to prevent deficits. While we are talking about utilities, I have also included in your packet a graph of the utility debt fund on page 15. While certain rates and fees cover the utility operating fund expenditures, other rates and fees cover the debt for utility capital projects, and some cover both. The bond debt from water and wastewater capital projects are paid out of the utility debt fund. You will see that the utility debt fund model shows that the fund balance is growing at the end. Generally, that is because the administration mostly puts just some recurring multi-year projects in their model for the out years, and not all of them, and does not put much in the way of large one-time projects. This year, the administration has done a better job of including some large-scale and more multi-year capital projects, but I still expect growth in the capital projects for these project classes in the years based on their past history and a review of the capital budget support. In our capital budget amendments, you will see recommendations to cut the water and wastewater capital projects as well. Okay. Now I'm going to jump over and talk about the general bond debt affordability. The county budget policy stipulates that the general fund debt limit will be less than 4% of personal income. With this guideline, the Spending Affordability Committee recommended a general fund debt limit of $1,675 million. As I did for revenue, on page 16, I also adjusted the Spending Affordability Committee recommendations, which were based on a 3.7% personal income growth, to determine the impact if the personal income growth is only 1%, if it is flat at 0%, and if there is a decline of 2%. In the proposed capital budget overview on pages 1 and 3, the administration presented its debt affordability analysis, showing the proposed capital budget and program is within the county's established guidelines. I have included these pages in your packets as page 17 and 18. On page 17, the administration analyzes the CIP as an average of $163 million per year and calculates our debt ratios using the $163 million. On the following page, the administration calculates the debt ratios using the actual bonds in the program. This program shows that the county is still within its debt affordability guidelines. There you go. Looking back to page 16, even with the fluctuations of personal income, the proposed budget is within the county's debt affordability limit, but that is a limit and only relates to fiscal year 21. During my analysis this year, I have done some long-range projections of these ratios. You not only have to look at your current conditions, but you need to look at your future conditions when contemplating entering into long-term debt. For example, you wouldn't enter into a mortgage-free home today based on today's income, knowing that you plan to retire next year and your income will be cut in half. Or I should say, you shouldn't. In order to completely understand the county's debt and future debt affordability, I will provide you with a little bit of history. Beginning in 2016, the county approved paying back our new debt issuances over 30 years as opposed to 20. This allowed the county to put additional and larger projects into the capital program while staying within our debt affordability because the payments of debt are stretched over a longer period of time. So the debt payment each year will be smaller. Also, that year, the administration pushed some of their debt limits upward because the administration believes we can use more of our resources to pay for this debt. The administration's current guideline for debt service expenditures as a percentage of general fund revenue is 11.5%. This guideline has increased several times in the past 25 years, from 6% to the current 11.5%. Last year, I spoke with financial advisor at Prague to determine if there was an upper limit. At that time, Prague generally advised that the county keep this guideline around 10% and further advised that the guideline should not go any higher than 11.5%. According to Prague, that guideline has not changed for decades. Further, when presenting the capital budget and program, the administration also mentions the word lumpy. They highlight the average annual size of the capital budget and program and then point out how the plan to use the funds is higher in some years and lower in others, but that the average annual size is affordable. We often point out that the capital budget has much higher level bonds in the earlier years and much lower level bonds in the out years. This year, the fiscal year 21 capital budget as proposed is on the low side. However, if you look at fiscal year 22 capital program, the use of bonds is 22.8 million more than the average annual size that is affordable. Further, although fiscal year 23 and 24 appear low again, there were several projects in the capital budget and program that had planning costs in the capital program without construction costs that will most likely land in these years, and there will most likely be new projects added in these years. With the proposed capital program, the county stays within these guidelines over the 6 years of the program. However, I do not believe the presentation shows the true projection of what is going to occur with debt. You must look long-term to see the true effects of the capital program. For one thing, this debt will no longer drop off at the end of 20 years. Right now, our 20-year debt issuance are nearing the end and the debt service payments are lower. Also, the 30-year program is in its infancy and the annual debt service payments are lower. Thus, we are enjoying a lull in our debt service costs related to the size of the project. However, as we pack more projects into this 30-year program, the true effect of this program will be noticed in the far out years. To give you some perspective on debt affordability, I've included on pages 19 to 21 6 scenarios regarding debt affordability. In all 6 of these scenarios, the county exceeds the recommended debt service ratios by fiscal year 30 to 35. In scenario 1, we kept the current capital program based on the administration's assumptions and using their assumption in the out years of a 2.6% revenue growth, we extended it with the current debt affordability calculation and an equal 2.6% capital expenditure growth. In scenario 2, we did the same thing, but changed the capital expenditure growth to 5%. Currently, the administration estimates a 5% increase in their debt expense, and the capital project estimates are generally escalated at 5% based on an industry standard whenever a project gets pushed off another year. So that is probably a more realistic picture of what is happening. In scenario 3, we increased the CIP to reflect the expected growth, and then we extend it based on the 2.6% revenue and a 2.6% capital expenditure growth. In scenario 4, we did the same thing, only changing the capital expenditure growth to 5%. In scenario 5, the CIP was increased to reflect the expected growth, and then in light of the current economic situation, we projected a 0% revenue growth over the next 2 years, and then an extension based on a 2.6% revenue growth and a 2.6% capital expenditure growth. And lastly, in scenario 6, we did the same thing, but increased the capital expenditure growth to 5%. I've shown these statistics in 5-year increments. I highlighted fiscal year 35 and want to point out that the first 30-year bond issued in fiscal year 2016 that had been 20-year bonds, they would have ended their term around fiscal year 31. Of course, we cannot accurately predict far into the future because there are many factors that could change these projections. However, I continue to urge the administration and the council to limit the debt load at a level that keeps the debt statistics flat and not continue to load debt in a program so that the statistics climb to eventually reach or exceed the limit. This restraint will ensure that future administrations and future generations have more flexibility when funding their capital needs. My upcoming capital recommendations will reduce the proposed CIP, and I hope you will consider our suggestions. Last but definitely not least, I feel compelled to talk about the structural deficit in the fiscal year 21 budget. A structural deficit occurs when you utilize one-time revenues to pay for recurring expenses. For example, you don't want to use the sale of an asset to pay for pay increases because the following year you will not have those sale proceeds to continue to pay for those pay increases. The total fiscal year 21 estimated revenue included in the proposed budget includes $1,676.5 million in recurring revenue. This would include such things as property tax revenue that you would expect to receive on a yearly basis. The total fiscal year 2021 estimated expenditures that are proposed to be appropriated this year consist of $1,700.4 million, leaving a structural deficit of $23.9 million. Basically, it is like paying your mortgage with funds from selling your car because you don't have enough wages to cover it. That might get you through 1 month or 1 year, but then you're in trouble the next month because you don't have any more cars to sell. If the county does not meet its recurring revenue projections, or if the county's recurring expenditures exceed their estimates, the structural deficit will grow. The largest factor contributing to the revenue side of the equation is the economic downturn, which resulted in a lower estimated revenue than it would have been. The largest factor contributing to this structural deficit on the expenditure side are the pay packages that have been included in the proposed budget, with an estimated recurring expense in the current year of $14 million for salary increases alone and another $800,000 for additional costs due to increasing such things as on-call pay and shift differential pay. Further, the current year budget does not have the full impact for the pay increases given mid-year, which will result in even higher costs when these costs are incurred on an annual basis. Plus, the impact of pension costs will not be seen until fiscal year 22. While it won't make me popular with my peers, in good faith, I must recommend that the council consider eliminating these pay packages, reducing them, or putting them into the contingency fund until it is more clear what the economic situation will be as a result of COVID-19. I want to be clear that this will not result in arbitration, as that only comes into play when the county executive and the unions cannot agree on what to put into the budget. The council has the right to cut these items due to affordability. As stated in the administration's presentation, they negotiated pay packages before COVID-19 hit and included those pay packages in good faith. You will see that many of the unions are moving to new pay scales that result on average pay increases up to 13%. I should say in your packets, I'm not going to show it on the screen, but in your packets in Appendix 1 or Attachment 1, I've listed all of the unions and what their COLA and merit and pay package is. And then on Attachment 2, I included what the additional changes in their union agreements are and the other costs associated that were provided by the administration. The total cost, let me see, and the annual salaries for those. You will see that many of the unions are moving to a new pay scale that results on average pay increases of up to 13% and will result in a varied increase in pay ranges from 1 to 32% for individuals. In addition to these salary increases, these pay packages provide a variety of other improvements to benefit. Higher cost per hours for shift differential, on-call, active duty. A list of these other costs are included in attachment 2. The full cost of the salaries and FICA of the individuals in fiscal year 21, along with the annualized cost of these salaries and FICA, plus the pension piece that will be brought into next year's budget. Pension is budgeted based on actuarial assumptions that relate to the prior fiscal year. It is spread to departments and budgeted based on their percentage of total salary. Any fluctuations in salaries and wages in the current year will not impact the amount charged because it is based on prior year's actuarial analysis, and those funds need to be contributed regardless. So those departments are charged based on the calculated amount. While the administration provided me with their analysis of the pay increases as a comparison of surrounding counties, I did not have time to independently verify these salaries or review their reasonableness. I will say that you can look solely to salaries alone without considering other benefits of employment, such as health and retiree benefits. Further, when comparing and adjusting pay scales to a surrounding county who pays higher taxes, you also need to take into consideration the county's current affordability. Lastly, since these pay packages were negotiated, the economy has changed based on COVID-19, and no one is sure how COVID-19 will ultimately impact the county's economy and revenues and expenditures in the upcoming year. The council should consider whether these pay packages are still reasonable in light of how times have changed. While these employees may be deserving of these pay packages, there are many people that are suffering and are due to and may require additional expenditures of the county. I would be remiss not to encourage the county to consider this, especially in light of the structural deficit that these pay packages are causing. Part of. Okay. Oh, sorry. Hey, did you lose me? Yes. No, you didn't need to speak. I just want to let you know that we're going to have a tech. I didn't want you to be surprised. Tech's going to come over to assist. And so what we'll probably do in the tech is take a break so we can. Okay. Okay, let me back up then. This page shows the pay actions and the average increases in base salary by group. And now I'm going to talk about the contingency fund. The fiscal year 21 proposes to appropriate $12 million for contingencies. Your package includes a chart showing the amounts appropriated in the contingency account each of the last fiscal years. This fund is used for additional appropriation requests, including the cost of snow removal and sewer drainage damage. We've enjoyed 2 relatively easy winters. However, we have had snowstorms that have cost much of $8 million. The council should also consider potential unforeseen expenditures resulting from COVID-19 when determining the balance of the contingency fund. The contingency fund is also a place where the council can budget for items that they would like to see in the budget, but due to uncertainty of the economic situation of the county, the council is reluctant to commit to the appropriation. And once we are midway or 3/4 of the way through the fiscal year and we have a better idea of the financial situation of the county, The county executive can request, and the county council could approve the use of those funds. Council has also put items in the contingency fund when the council wants additional information prior to committing to the appropriation. Also in your packet, in the back, on Appendix 3, we have included a list of grants for fiscal year 17 to fiscal year 21. These are community grants to show you that the community grants program does continue. For fiscal year 21, many of the community grants have been moved to Arundel Community Development Services. They will review the applications and make selections and awards based on the priorities established by the county. These have not yet been awarded in fiscal year 21, and this list for fiscal year 29, is not the official grants and awards, but we are showing these for comparison purposes. This is in the back of the presentation labeled Appendix 3. All of the listed grants are county contributions to local nonprofits. It should be noted that the athletic organizations that receive maintenance grants perform maintenance for the field. Most of the grants in the last category are included in the capital budget and funded by PAYGO. I continue to advise that the grants to community organizations should be in the operating budget. According to the budget policies, the capital budget is used for acquisition or development of major capital improvements. These smaller grants to outside community organizations for their capital improvements do not meet that definition. Board of Education. I reviewed the board budget and have reconciled the county executive's request to the schedules provided by the board that presents the superintendent and board's request. This year, the county executive only provided the Board of Education its required maintenance of effort, totaling approximately $748 million. If you cut anything from the Board of Education's operating budget, you will need to restore the same amount somewhere else in the board's operating budget so that the county will be in compliance with the state's maintenance of effort requirements. Unlike the county budget, you may increase the Board of Education's budget, but only to the extent that the county executive cannot fund a Board of Education request. To balance the budget, you must take cuts elsewhere in the budget or increase the tax rate to cover any additions made to the Board of Education's budget. So next, I would like to go through my operating cuts and analysis. This year, we tried to highlight for each of the departments the major changes in their budget from last year to this year, and then followed with any cuts that we make recommendations for. Start with the first cut, which is to you guys. So, the legislative branch, they, in error, included the $1,500 bonus for the county council, which is not allowed by law. It was an error. They also budgeted all of the legislative branches one-time bonuses in the county auditor's budget. So therefore, the cut is being taken from the county auditor's budget. And sometime during the year, we will have to transfer the bonuses to the appropriate council and Board of Appeals budget, the remaining ones. Although I included tactics to the high levels, I'm not going to really talk about them unless there's something I want to point out. So I'm just going to kind of page through them. The county executive, the county chief administrative officer, the community grants increased the community development services for handling the grants. And there was a one-time federal community development grant that dropped off from the Community Development Fund in their budget. Office of Law, they have a new senior assistant county attorney. Although it shows 100, there is a $50,000 reduction in turnover for that position. Office of Administrative Hearing, all of them obviously will be hit with salary inflation and one-time bonus increases, so I'm not going to cover that. Health insurance and pension costs have gone up. I'm not going to hit that every time. Central services includes the new Commerce Park lease and improvements to the building for that lease, a CPI increase, and additional trash removal expenditures. We did propose a cut to the central services. The auditors recommended provide for the office's planned spending for building supplies for the build out. The office of central services, we also requested a cut to operating equipment services. The auditor's recommendation considers the expenditure history of this account plus inflation, and the other building supplies is based on trending of expenditures. The garage and vehicle replacement fund also falls within central services. There was an increase in automotive equipment purchases. There was also an increase in mobile data computers for the vehicle, and there was a removal of the one-time funding transfer to the garage working capital in the fiscal year 20 budget. We did recommend a cut of $2,179,000. The garage vehicle replacement fund. Was provided to us of what they wanted to purchase, included vehicles that had not yet been replaced from last year, but we determined that there were sufficient funds in the current year budget to pay for them. The garage working capital fund is also in under central services. And they have decreased working capital fuel costs, and they have a capital outlay for a wheel balancer and tire replacement machine. We did propose a cut to the garage working capital fund, vehicle operations, to other professional services. It considers expenditure history of this account plus inflation. The Office of Finance has consultant service to purchase software related to the new Galaxy implementations in their budget, and a request to move cashiers 1 and 2 to customer service representatives. According to the Office of Law, there are a number of, I will cover this later, I guess, related to the position control. Office of Finance, Financial Audit Services, the auditors recommended considering expenditure history of this account plus inflation, a $10,000 cut. Ambulance services, which is based on a percentage of revenue on fees. We based on our projected revenue, we proposed a cut for $30,000. Office of Finance non-department pay as you go. This is the pay-go piece for the capital projects. I proposed a cut of $1,427,000. That is a balancing adjustment. So basically, whatever we decide to cut on general fund pay-go, we will take out of that account. We'll reduce it accordingly from the operating side. Mandated grants, the grant fund contribution, we recommend a cut for $130,000 to align it with state law requirement of what they have to reimburse at that point. And the front foot assessments and taxation pay for county property, we adjusted it to their actual front foot bills. Office of Finance non-departmental contribution to others, we reduced the contribution to the PTI fund by $500,000 to reflect the income tax revenue changes. Video lottery local impact aid. This is just included in the slide to show you the changes in that, where the aid is going. Office of Budget, nothing we need to talk about there. Office of Personnel, they have included in their budget $750,000 due to a classification and compensation study. That study is required by law every 5 years. I don't think it's been done since I've been here. One thing I will caution is that they consider both affordability and reviewing of salaries in neighboring jurisdictions. Oh, I'm getting cut off. Hold on just a minute. Hey, Joanne. Hold on. Okay. Oops, oh, sorry. We both hit at the same time, I think. She got it? No.
Madam Auditor, can you hear me at this time? No.
There's increases in other professional services such as the fiber optic SEO support, information technology. There are also two system programmers programs into the budget.
Madam Auditor, can you hear me? This is Madam Chair.
We are proposing a cut to the Office of Information Technology, centric phone services. The auditor's recommendation considers the expenditures history of this account. These are the charges as we are moving.
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we have, I'm calling the auditor at her office. I believe at the moment we have a tech who will be there very shortly. I believe we should take a recess until we resolve the issues so we can have this run more smoothly.
I agree. Thank you.
And I'm going to say probably at least 20 minutes, half an hour.
Okay.
All right, so if you want to call for a recess.
The council will recess for 30 minutes to resolve the auditor issues.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Can I have a motion?
So moved. Councilwoman Rodvian.
Second, Councilwoman Lacey.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion to recess for 30 minutes has been voted on. We will recess until 10:45. Thank you.
Okay, Madam Auditor, you are on screen, and can you hear?
I can hear fine. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Absolutely fine. Thank you very much.
Okay, perfect.
I
Well
would
done.
I would recommend that you start your presentation back a couple of pages.
Okay. Anyone in particular?
I don't think we lost any content.
Okay.
I think we'd be fine with where you were.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. I think we were on Office of Transportation. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Should be coming up. I will continue. Let's see. So, Office of Transportation, their major thing was a increase in contractual services for the transportation contract and the grant to see Minneapolis. There's also a reduction in contributions for transport. Can't hear me? Oh, okay, sorry. Not.
We can hear you, Madam Auditor. You're a bit garbled again. Oh,
Okay.
try again.
Okay.
There you go. Clear.
Good. Okay. So moving on, we did recommend a cut in Office of Transportation for their vehicle operating, vehicle replacement, the garage vehicle, garage funds charged for the use of vehicles, we reduced it based on the charges they would be charged. And other services, we recommended okay, sorry, we're going to switch. I am going to stop my share and switch over. I'm still on. Is my mic still on?
Madam Auditor, please mute while you are fixing that.
Yeah.
Okay, Madam Auditor, I believe Ms. Corby sharing your screen. Can you hear? And you could begin.
What is that? What is that?
It says leave computer.
Speaker is not working.
Your speaker is not working.
Please check your connection.
We can hear you, Madam Auditor.
You can hear me? Perfect. Okay, so I think the plan is for Laura to share the screens.
I think you can continue.
Yes, Laura.
Madam Auditor, I'm sharing your presentation. It's on screen. If you could tell me which slide you would like me to be on, and then just tell me to advance and I will do that.
Okay, I'm on screen. I guess we might as well go to 51.
Slide 51?
Yes.
Okay. Is this correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, all you.
I'm going to try to run through this pretty fast, so keep your fingers ready. Okay, so Board of Education, there's we recommended a cut for $67,000 for the self-insurance fund contribution. This is an operating budget cut. The amount in the Board of Education's contribution to this county self-insurance fund was higher than their allocated amount. But if you do take this cut, you need to add it back somewhere. Okay, Arundel Community College, same thing. There's a self-insurance fund contribution for $126,000. The auditor's recommendation corrects the amount of their county contribution to the self-insurance fund. But again, if you cut it here, you do want to make sure that they are at last year's levels of contribution, which is what the county set. So you would want to increase it somewhere to not risk losing state funding. Okay, the Department of Public Library. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm moving on to the Department of Public Libraries. I'm going to have to move this so I can follow you. The main thing here is the removal of library materials from a one-time funding in last year and an increase due to contribution to the OPEB Retiree Health Insurance Fund. Next. We did recommend a couple of cuts with the Department of Public Libraries for salaries and wages. We recommend a cut of $100,000 to budget their vacant positions at the minimum salary in their pay scale, as it is done with the county. In special pays, we recommended a cut to correct the minimum wage increase calculation. That goes in effect in January. They had included a full year when it was for a half a year, and the related FICA for $5,000. Next. We also recommended a cut in office equipment to align with their expenditure history for this account, plus inflation of $21,000. We took a cut in non-Centrix phone services due to declining amount and expenditure history. Other professional services, auditors recommended a cut to provide for the department's planned spending in fiscal year 21 of $10,000. Next. Office of Planning and Zoning. Let's see. The main thing here is an increase in management services due to an impact fee study, Glen Burnie revitalization, and GDP offset by savings from items that they no longer need. And grants contributions is increased to moving grants from contractual services to grants and contributions. Next. We did recommend some cuts in the Office of Planning and Zoning for management services. The auditor's recommendation provides for the office's planned spending, including new initiatives, training, seminars, and courses. The auditor's recommendation considers the expenditure history of this account. And for grants, contributions, and other, the auditor's recommendation provides the office's planned spending in fiscal year 21. The Department of Inspections and Permits, miscellaneous equipment decreased due to a removal of one-time purchases of 5 new vehicles in the fiscal year 20 budget. The rest relate to health insurance, pension costs, and salaries, as we discussed on a whole. Next, we did recommend a cut to the Department of Inspections and Permits. This is to correct an error in the calculation of the one-time bonus for non-represented employees. Next. Lease rate vehicles and lease rate vehicle replacement. These are the rates charged by the Central Services Garage Funds. We recommended a cut to match what they will be charged this year. Reforestation Fund, the decrease in their budget is because there was a large amount last year in management services, which is not being funded this year, and in grant contributions. Next. Department of Public Works General Fund. The main things that have changed here is there's a new position, traffic maintenance technician. There's an increase in management services for the contractual review, analysis, permitting, and inspection of small wireless facility installations. There's also an increase in other professional services for support for DW, GIS, and survey data. The next, we recommended a cut. The auditor's recommendation considers the roadside mowing and brush cutting at the lowest bid that just came in, so we reduced the cost to the bid price. And the snow removal service, the auditor's recommendation considers the amount that has been historically budgeted for this account and reduced it to that amount. Next. Water and wastewater operating fund is under the Department of Public Works budget. They are hiring 2 contractual positions for paving inspections to help with 1 contractual position for the new septic to sewers conversion program, a emergency service manager, and 5 meter house technicians, and removal of certain contractual positions that were in fiscal year's 20's budget. And they are doing the 3rd phase of their engineering design manual updates. Next. This just is additional ones. There's a county facility repair renovation increase due to ladder upgrades for the sewer pumping stations. And there is an increase in utility, water, and sewer purchases from other jurisdictions. There's also an increase in contract costs for sludge removal. Next. This just is additional amounts and shows that there is a decrease in the pay-as-you-go going into capital projects this year. Next. So we did recommend some cuts in the water and wastewater operating fund. We recommended a cut in the county facility repair and renovation of $397,800. The auditor's recommendation considers the expenditure history of this account and provides funds related to the newly acquired treatment plant. We also recommended a cut in mowing. The auditor's recommendation considers the expenditure history of this account and provides funds relating to the new acquired treatment plant. Operating equipment services, the auditor's recommendation considers the expenditures history of this account plus inflation and provides funds related to the newly acquired treatment plant. Next. We also recommended a cut to temporary pay based on their expenditure history and grants, contributions, and others. The auditor recommendation provides for the funds planned spending in fiscal year 21 to pay-go based on our cuts. Next. The utility, water, and sewer purchase, we also recommended a cut to that of $440,000. Waste collection fund. The largest increase here is due to the special disposal services due to increase in waste being diverted to the Annapolis Junction transfer station now that our bottom is filled in our landfill. It also increased in residential trash pickup, an increase in debt service, and an increase in pro rata shares. That's just their portion that's being paid in to pay for other services provided by the county. Next. The Watershed Protection and Restoration Fund also falls under Department of Public Works. And the main increase here is an increase in debt service for bonds issued for Watershed Protection and Restoration Fund capital projects. Next. We did recommend 2 cuts here. We recommended a cut to overtime based on our analysis of this account. And we recommended a cut of $16,000 there and a cut of $178,600 to consultants based on expenditure history of this account and inflation. Next. I should say that whenever we analyze expenditures, we always look at inflation. We always look at their expenditure history, and then we always try to make sure we include any new items that they have purchased or plan to purchase, I should say, in the upcoming year. Department of Aging, there's a reduction in some grant funding, and this shows, as many of the departments you will see are transferring community grants to the community development services to issue. Whoops. Hold on just a minute. Is that you? Or I guess that's yours. Oh, that might be me. Okay, sorry. Okay, let's see. Next. Department of Recreation is asking for a maintenance worker 2, a park ranger for the Beverly Triton Beach, recreation supervisor for Matthewstown Harmons Park, an increase due to the minimum wage increase. Next. They also have a decrease due to the removal of one-time expenditures related to the Eisenhower Golf Course being opened. And other services, there's an increase due to increase in programming and cost of buses for the additional summer camp week. And this one also shows that its grants are being transferred to the Arundel Community Development Services. Next. The main change here is the increase in contractual pay due to increase in minimum wage. Next. And that's the child care fund. that runs the centers. Department of Health, they are asking for contractual pay for the school health equity adjustment, the gun violence prevention coordinator, the Healthy Anne Arundel coordinator, the REACH program coordinator, and school health program. They also are showing in their budget state employee pay increases. And they are moving expenditures to grants and moving from other professional services down to grants. They're also funding expired for their safe stations and respond grants, so that's included in next year's budget. Next. I did recommend some cuts to the health department. I recommend a cut of $42,000 to medical services. That considers the expenditure history of this account plus inflation. Next. Contractual FICA, the auditor's recommendation fixes an error in the calculation of the FICA for contractual employees. Next. The Department of Social Services. This also shows the grant shifting to the Arundel Community Development Services and an increase in other professional services for the HMIS going on to the cloud and transportation services, additional transportation services. Next. The auditor's recommendation recommended a cut for the Department of Social Services of $27,500. This was a new transportation services. They had put in their budget the full amount of the service, and they have a grant that pays for half. So this cut leaves the county's half. Next. Police Department. Let's see, they're offering a new, they are asking for a new position, the Assistant Director of Police, a crime analyst, and a management aide. They also are transferring a position from Central Services as a facilities maintenance manager. The decrease in the budget is a decrease in overtime. I will say that they generally exceed their overtime budgeted each year. And the next is just increase in their health insurance and pension costs. Next. Let's see, what else did I want to share? Miscellaneous equipment. The decrease is due to the removal of the one-time purchase of the new helicopter and other miscellaneous equipment that was in the fiscal year 20 budget. And also there's a decrease due to ending prisoner transportation services due to the opening of the Central Holding and Processing Center. Next. I did propose some cuts to the police department's budget. We proposed a cut to salaries and wages to correct a duplicate salary increase being included, and copy machine supplies based on the trending and expenditure history of this account plus inflation. Next. Police Department continued in Bureau 250. We recommended a cut to non-Centrix phone services. And this allows for expenditure history and provides for the department's planned new spending in fiscal year 21. And in communication services, the auditor's recommendation considers the expenditure history of this account and provides, and the new MDCs being used more often than radios. And then we also, and that cut is $20,000. And we also recommended a cut for other weapons and supplies based on their planned spending in fiscal year 21. That's the TASER program. They included last year's TASER cost, and it goes down this year. Next. The fire department. There's this shows the decrease in the video lottery terminal funding coming in, and they're asking for a new position, a fire lieutenant for the mobile integrated community health program. Next. Oh, sorry, they also increased their decreased their overtime, sorry. Let's see. The automobile equipment, there's a removal of one-time expenditures from fiscal year 20, and they are adding a purchase of a tower ladder and equipment, and purchasing of a rollback truck using VLT funds. There's also a decrease in the grant fund contribution due to the pause in the SAFER grant. Next. Fire department, we recommended some cuts in that department. We recommended a cut to personnel recruitment based on the lack of hiring this year. We did leave them funding for, because they wanted to start recruiting this year for next year. Copy machine supplies, we took a cut there based on expenditure history and also after allowing for their 4 new copiers. Next. Communication equipment, the auditor's recommendation considers a cut of $36,500 based on the expenditure history of this account. Next. Department of Detention Facilities. Medical services went up due to a CPI adjustment in the contract, and the uniform purchase increase due to the purchase of a new battle dress uniform for 315 employees. Next. The auditor's recommendation considers the expenditure history of the safety equipment and recommended a cut of $20,000 after providing for inflation and new requests in fiscal year 21. Next. We also recommended a cut in Bureau 405 for the Department of Detention Facilities Admin Support Services in general office supplies. The auditor's recommendation considered the expenditure history plus inflation and also provided for the department's planned spending for the newly opened facility. Next. Office of Emergency Management. There are some decreases in contractual services due to the partial transition to VoIP. It's going from Centrix to non-Centrix. Increase in contractual services for security services and software. Next. There are an increase in the jurors' fees at the circuit court. Oh, I just realized this is circuit court. That is they get reimbursed for that. So any fees that they get charged, they will have offsetting revenue come back in. There's also a decrease in furniture and fixtures that were one-time purchased last year. Next. Orphans Court, not much there. Next. Office of the State's Attorney. There's an increase in legal services for extradition charges and to provide for medical services due to anticipated expenditures related to the State versus Ramos trial. Next. We did recommend some cuts at the Office of State's Attorneys. We recommend a cut to transportation costs. The auditor's recommendation reflects the transfer of this budget to legal services and provides for additional funds related to the Ramos case in fiscal year 21. Grant fund contribution, the auditor's recommendation provides for the office's planned spending in fiscal year 21. When it's not a trending cut, we don't show the trend because it's unrelated. Next. Office of the Sheriff. There's a reduction in the child support enforcement grant funding. There's also a new security system expense where central services, the sheriff, and one other department used to pay for it, and they have decided to host it at the Office of the Sheriffs. Can't remember the other department at the moment. Okay, next. Office of the Sheriff, we are recommending a cut to security systems while we are leaving the $10,000 for taking over the security systems at Arundel Center. They were expending less than was previously budgeted, so we're recommending a cut for $10,000 there. Next. Board of License Commissioners or Liquor Board, they're requesting a new position, the secretary. And also, I don't see it on here, but also an executive director. Oh, they're reclassing one of their administrative assistants to an executive director. Both of those positions are required by state law that went in effect or will go in effect on July 1st. They are also have an increase in contractual services due to computer programming for database development and iPads for their inspection reports. Next. Board of Elections. They're increasing their temporary pay and FICA increases due to temporary staff for the presidential election, which is generally more than the preliminary. They are also increasing their county share of the state election voting system, the costs of the state Board of Elections. Certain costs are shared with the county, and this is their share, and they budget their share. There's also reduction in election official training, since most of that is done during the primary election, and they have the election supervisors or carry over to the presidential. Next. There's not much change in cooperative extension. This is the University of Maryland program that they do for the counties, and they and the counties help pay for those costs. Next. Ethics Commission, not much there. Next. Self-insurance fund. There is an increase in the health insurance and pension costs due to a new claims adjuster position approved in fiscal year 20. And there's also an increase in the self-insurance fund due to actuarial recommendation. Next. We did recommend a cut to self-insurance fund in training seminars and courses based on expenditure history and this account plus inflation. Next. Health insurance fund. There is an increase in the health insurance fund contributions due to 1.5% allowance for growth and a cost and a $2 million buffer for COVID-19. They are increasing their contributions for additional OPEB to transfer to OPEB liability of by $5 million. It was $5 million last year, and they increased it to $10 million this year. Next. We did recommend a cut in supplies and materials for printing commercial. The auditor recommends considering the expenditure history of this account plus inflation. The next cut is not something that the auditors typically do. We usually want them to build their OPEB trust fund in light of the very large $550 million unfunded liability. However, with COVID-19 and uncertainty in economic times, we recommend that either they keep it at the same contribution and cut the other $5 million, or leave it in the health insurance fund to closer to the end of the fiscal year when they know more what's going on. Next. Impact fee special revenue funds, auditor's recommendations. This is a balancing amendment or balancing cut to match the use of the school impact fees and the available fundings in each of the districts. Next. Let's probably continue on the next slide. Next. Okay. So now we're up to the fiscal year 21 proposed capital budget and program analysis and recommendations that I've included in your packet. I'll give you a brief kind of explanation of those recommendations. Next. Okay, for the demo building code / health, the average annual expenditures for fiscal year 17 to 20 for this project was around 62,000. As of May, the available project balance is 254,000. The fiscal year 21 request is an additional 200,000, and the program request throughout 22 to 26 is also 200,000. Based on the defined need, historical expenditures, and the available balance, we recommend deleting the fiscal year 21 request of 200,000 and reducing each program year request by 50,000. Next. The Agricultural Preservation Program. As of May 31st, the available project balance was $2,286,000. The fiscal year 21 request is for an additional $1,009,000. Based on all current offers and applications in this program, we recommend reducing the fiscal year 21 request by $1.5 million. This reduction leaves sufficient funds to provide the county's contribution for the 2 accepted offers, the county contribution for the Royal Legacy application, the county contribution for 2 additional applications, if accepted at full value, and an allowance of the county funding up to the maximum potential cost of the 2 new applications, if the applications are accepted at full and the state does not provide a full state match. Next is, information technology enhancement. As of May 31st, 2020, the available project balance was 10 million. The fiscal year 21 request is for 9.9 million, which in total would be 19.9 million. Annual expenditures range from 2.1 million to 11.1 million. The average annual expenditures from fiscal year 17 to fiscal year 20 is 7.2 million. Based on historical and average annual expenditures, the expected activity, and the available balance, we recommend reducing the fiscal year 21 request by 5 million. This reduction would leave 14.9 million for the remainder of fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 21 activity. Next. Brooklyn Park Senior Center expansion. The administration has determined that project funding can be reduced by 54,000. Fire equipment maintenance facility. The fiscal year 21 project request includes 9 million for land for a new site to be identified. This is a new request, as the fiscal year 20 request indicated that the garage would be located on the county property. The 9 million is based on a 19 acres site. However, DPW estimates that approximately 3 acres is needed for this maintenance facility, and the other acres would be used for other county purposes. We recommend reducing the project request by 9 million and adding this amount to the advanced land acquisition to more properly reflect where this purchase should be located. Next. School sidewalks. As of May 27th, 2020, the available project balance was 650,000. Annual expenditures averaged 172,000 over the last 4 years. The fiscal year 21 request is for 250,000. Based on historical expenditures, the expected activity, and the available balance, we recommend reducing the fiscal year 21 request by 150,000. This reduction leaves sufficient funds to complete imitated tasks based on current estimates, and 100,000 to initiate designs on new sidewalks. Next. Lakeshore Fire Station. This project is complete, and the administration has determined that the project funding can be reduced by 30,000. Jacobsville Fire Station. The construction contract bid was significantly less than the administration's estimate. We recommend increasing the construction contingency to 20% and reducing the overall project funding for the difference. Next. Woodland Beach Volunteer Fire Station relocation. This project provides a county contribution toward the relocation of the Woodland Beach Volunteer Fire Station. This project was established in the 18 budget. Since that time, the site considered for the relocation was sold to a third party, and there has been little progress identifying a new location. A grant agreement was not executed, and these funds were not obligated or dispersed. We recommend reducing prior approved pay-go by $1 million. The police and fire placeholder. This project serves as a placeholder in the program year for public safety capital improvements. The fiscal year 21 budget submission intended to show a 10 million request in fiscal year 25 and 26. The actual budget summary shows the request in fiscal year 24 and 25. To correct this, we recommend deleting the fiscal year 24 request and restoring it in fiscal year 26. And I think this is what the administration intended to do. So they may actually bring that one down in their supplemental. Next. Cape St. Clair Fire, I think it's fire station replacement. Construction funding is programmed for fiscal year 22, but based on the project schedule is not needed until fiscal year 23. Due to the high bonds in fiscal year 22, we're recommending deferring the construction funding until fiscal year 23 when they intend to use it. Zetron tone generator. This project replaces the tone-based alerting system used as part of the fire department dispatch system. The funding source for this project is 1.6 million in other federal grants. The administration intends to seek approval to use CARES Act funding for this project. It is not clear that the approval will be obtained. The administration obtained a proposal for the system in November 2018 before the pandemic occurrence. We recommend that formal authorization from the federal government be used to be obtained prior to using these funds for this purpose. Thank you. Next. South Shore Trail, this phase 2 construction contract estimate was calculated in error because it included the added 20% contingency from the design cost contingency, as well as in their own escalation. As a result, this caused an overestimate of the construction contract, construction contingency, other costs, which were based on a percentage of the contract, and overhead totaling $1.4 million and 40,000 in the fiscal year 22 capital program budget. Next. WBNA Trail, the phase 5 construction contract estimate was calculated in error because it included the added 8% contingency and 4.5% escalation to midpoint of construction from the design cost estimate, and also had their own escalation and contingency. Furthermore, even with the calculation error, the prior approved budgeted construction funds exceeded the estimate by about 830,000. Also, the inspection contract budgeted funds exceeded the calculated estimate by 110. As a result of our inquiry, the administration increased contingencies, other costs, and kept the same inspection budget without any justification for the budgeted changes. Therefore, we recommend eliminating this $1,575,000 of excess from the budget. This leaves $140,500 of the excess funds for additional contingencies. Next. This project establishes a fund for a countywide greenway, parkland, and open space acquisitions and related expenses. The county bonds that fund overhead and acquisition expenses not covered by the grant. Funding remains, but another grant funding remains at 10% in the fiscal year 21 request when the expenditures are closer to 5. As of May 31st, only $31,600 has been expended from the $530,800 available. Therefore, we recommend reducing the county bonds back to the percentage it was in fiscal year 19, which was 7%. We recommend reducing county bonds 32,621 and 104,000 in each of the out years. Hancock History Site. The Vision Center construction contingency was estimated at 7.7%. The administration informed us that they reduced it to 2% because the construction is 92%. However, when the administration provided us with an updated forecast of the project, they only reduced the contingency to about 6%. So therefore, we are correcting that error We also recommend reducing the prior approved county bonds by $200,000 to reflect the administration's reducing its need of walkway luminary lights from 165 to 20. Next. The Arundel Swim Center renovation. The administration's latest construction cost estimate for the replacement of the translucent panels and mezzanine improvements with the escalation to midpoint to construction totaled $1,037,000, which is $105,000 less than the construction contract bid. We recommend reducing the project by that amount. Also, the overhead is estimated at 6% of the total project, and we recommend revising the overhead estimate to 4% based on what is being charged and reducing fiscal year 20 bonds by $70,000 for that. Water access facilities. As of May 31st, 2020, the available project balance was $704,600. Annual expenditures ranged from $8,200 to $486,700. The fiscal year 21 request is for $268,000. Based on historical expenditures, the expected activity, and the available balance, we recommend deleting the fiscal year 21 request. Next. Rendezvous Athletic Fields. The athletic fields construction contract was awarded and encumbered for approximately $700,000 less than the budget estimate. We recommend eliminating the excess funds. Glen Burnie Ice Rink. The ice rink schematic design cost estimate exceeds the construction contract estimate by $301,900. As a result, even with the fiscal year 21 request of $125,000, there's insufficient funding to perform construction in fiscal year 21. Currently, the capital program displays a large amount of bonds in fiscal year 22, which adding to it would not be recommended due to debt affordability. Therefore, we recommend moving the fiscal year 21 request of county bonds to fiscal year 23. Next. Brooklyn Heights Teen Center. This was supposed to be a partnership with Partners for Children, Youth, and Family. And the funding was supposed to be primarily provided by them. They prepared an application for the State Revitalization Program, Greater Baybrook Alliance Program. However, the project funding was not approved, and they decided not to move forward with this project. As a result, the administration has decided to design and construct outdoor amenities. This revised scope of work is not the intended purpose of the project, and due to the lack of support for this project, we recommend deleting it and letting them bring it back in for what they intend. Quiet Waters Retreat. According to the administration, this property was purchased and paid out of the advanced land acquisition in October 2019, and the fiscal year 21 requested POS acquisition of $135,000 is to complete the land acquisition. However, the administration hasn't provided support to justify the increased need. They provided us with a cost estimate, and based on last year, we think they still have the funds as intended in the last year's budget to pay back PAYGO funds of $125,000. Next. The construction cost estimate is not included in the capital program, and the earliest this is for Deal Community Park, sorry. And the earliest the administration would be able to proceed with construction is fiscal year 22. Currently, the capital program displays a large amount of bonds already in fiscal year 22, which adding to it would not be recommended due to debt affordability. Therefore, we recommend the fiscal year 21 funding be pushed out to fiscal year 23, as it is better to design closer to the time of construction. Mayo Beach Park improvements. This new project is to design and construct improvements to the existing 23-acre Mayo Beach Park. The funding of $100,000 will cover a portion of the design part of this project. The rest of the design cost estimate of $455,000 and the construction cost estimate of $6,410,000 is not included in the capital program, and the earliest the administration would be able to proceed with construction is fiscal year 22. Currently, the capital program displays a large amount of bonds in fiscal year 22, which adding to it would not be recommended due to debt affordability. Therefore, we recommend the fiscal year 21 funding be pushed out to fiscal year 23 as it is better to design closer to the time of construction. Next. This project was funded with bonds in the prior approved, and the fiscal year 21 funding is from the Auditor TIF. We recommend replacing the prior approved bonds with TIF funds. The Auditor TIF currently has approximately 16 million that can be used for these projects, and about 9 million is intended for the Mark Train Garage at this moment. So these funds are available to be used for this other project in that area. Next. Boatkin Creek dredging. This project is in performance and the administration has determined that the project funding can be reduced. Therefore, we recommend reducing the prior approved bonds by $110,000. Rockhold Creek Federal Channel dredging. This project is in performance and the administration has determined that project funding can be reduced. In addition, the actual grant of the Maryland Waterway Improvement Funds for this project is greater than identified in the project funding sources. We recommend reducing the funding for this project by $34,000 and by reducing prior approved by $54,000 and increasing the fiscal year Maryland Waterway Improvement Fund grant funding source by $20,000. Next. This project is inactive and the administration has determined that the project funding can be reduced by $25,000. Next. This project provides for the study, design, and construction of stormwater management infrastructure. These efforts are continued in the watershed protection and restoration project class. The administration has determined that the project funding can be reduced by $155,000. Next. Board of Education. This is in the capital program. The Board of Education has determined that $540,000 of the school bus replacement capital program project is not needed in the current year. Therefore, we recommend reducing fiscal year 21 PAYGO by $540,000. Upgrade various schools to correct the amount of other state grant funding available. We recommend increasing other state grants by $120,000 to account for 2 new grants. Next. Additions. This project provides funding for separate gymnasiums to relieve overutilized multipurpose rooms, increase capacity, or programmatic enhancements. The Board of Education has determined that the project funding can be reduced by $1,500,000 based on their planned spending in fiscal year 21. Athletic stadium improvements. This is to correct the amount of other state grants funding available. There was a C class project, Arundel turf fields, that was moved into the athletic stadium improvements with $1 million of bonds and $500,000 in grants. That $500,000 in grants was never received, but they did receive a grant for $1,443,500. So therefore, this adjustment is netting those two and increasing grants to the amount they have. Next. Next. Crofton Area High School, to correct the amount of IAC funding available, we recommend reducing bonds and increasing the IAC funding by $2,564,000 of additional IAC money that was received from the state. The PS Military Installation Grant, they also received additional federal funding for this project, And we recommend increasing fiscal year 21 other federal grants by $5,797,000. Next. Community improvements. As of May 31st, the available project balance was $424,900. Annual expenditures ranged from $770,700 to a high of $843,000. The fiscal year 21 request is for $700,000. Based on historical expenditures, the expected activity, and the available balance, we recommend reducing prior approved PAYGO by $350,000. This reduction would leave $775,000 approximately for fiscal year 21. Next. As of May, library renovations. As of May 31st, 2020, the available project balance was $1,010,000. Annual expenditures ranged from $309,000 to a high of $774,000. The fiscal year 21 request is for $350,000. The available project balance of $1,010,000 includes $765,000 approved for discoveries at the Annapolis Mall in fiscal year 20, out of which the Department of Public Works has determined that $283,000 is in excess of the remaining cost to complete the project. Based on historical expenditures, the expected activity, and the available balance, we recommend reducing the fiscal year 21 request by $300,000. This reduction would leave $1,060,000 for fiscal year 21 activity. Annapolis Community Library. With construction of the library almost complete, there are funds available in excess of the remaining cost to complete. The administration has determined that we could finally reduce the project funding by $752,000. Next. Riviera Beach Community Library. The construction contract was awarded for $1,980,000, less than the estimate. The project cost estimate retained the excess funds as increased contingency due to the anticipated delays in the construction of the project. After accounting for inflation and potential delays in construction, there's a $1.5 million of excess funds available. We recommend reducing the prior approved bonds by that amount. Next. Waste management. So this project is in the solid waste capital program. The construction contract was awarded for the MLFRRF subcell 9.2, Millersville subcell 9.2 of the landfill. It came in $1,670,000 less than the estimate. Although the administration has built in contingencies with their latest cost estimates, they are also retaining an unidentified $1.4 million in reserves that has been set aside to accommodate future construction cost estimates. We recommend reducing the prior approved solid waste bonds by $1.4 million, leaving a 50% contingency and releasing the excess reserves. Next. Okay, wastewater. These are the projects in the utility that are paid for with the utility debt funding. Wastewater SCADA upgrade. The administration has determined that the project funding can be reduced by $264,000. Mayo collection system upgrade. The average annual expenditure from fiscal year 17 to fiscal year 20 for this project was $875,600. As of May 31st, 2020, the available project balance was $3,389,000, and the fiscal year 21 request is $650,000. Based on the defined need, historical expenditures, and the available balance, we recommend deleting the fiscal year 21 request of $650,000. This reduction would leave $3,389,000 available for spending in the project. Next. Cox Creek WRF non-ENR. The administration has determined that the project funding can be reduced by $125,000. Broadwater WRF Headworks. The administration has determined that the project funding can be reduced by $111,000. Next. State Highway Relocate Sewer. The highest annual spend from fiscal year 17 to 20 for this project was $450,000. As of May, the available project balance was $3,100,000, and the fiscal year 21 request is $200,000. Based on the defined need, historical expenditures, and the available balance, we recommend deleting the fiscal year 20 request of $200,000. This would leave $3 million and almost $100,000 available for spending in the project. Next. The water projects. Crofton Meadows 2 WTP upgrade. As of May 31st, 2020, the available project balance was $14,750,400. Based on the administration's planned spending needs and available balance, we recommend reducing prior approved water bonds by $157,000. This removes forecasted items that the administration concurred were no longer needed and removes excess overhead. This reduction would leave $14,593,400 available for planned needs, including 4% for overhead costs. Cape St. Clair Road TM. As of May 31st, 2020, the available balance was $29,600. The project is complete, and the administration agrees that the remaining funds are no longer needed. Next. Fire hydrant rehab. This project description for this project states that it is to remove lead paint and repaint fire hydrants and to provide coating maintenance on an approximately 15-year cycle. All of the fire hydrants have been through the lead paint removal phase a while ago, with all intended lead paint removed. Due to the paint currently being used having a life cycle of 7 to 10 years, the administration is moving to a 7-year cycle. I recommend the description be updated to reflect this change. Elevated water storage. As of May 31st, 2020, the available project balance was $33 million. Based on spending needs and the available balance, we recommend reducing prior approved water bonds by $1.1 million to remove land acquisition costs for a child project that is complete and didn't need land. Next. Baltimore City water main repairs. As of May 31st, 2020, the available project balance was $3 million. At this time, there are no active contracts for ongoing repairs. Therefore, we recommend reducing prior approved water bonds by $1 million. This reduction would leave $2 million for any emergency repairs that would need to be made. Crofton Meadows 2, EXP Phase 2. As of May 31st, the available project balance was $16,984,000. There are sufficient funds in the project to fund planned costs through fiscal year 22. The current capital program is requesting $24.6 million, and in fiscal year 22, and almost $12 million in fiscal year 23. We recommend that this request be pushed 1 year to fiscal year 23 and fiscal year 24 to better align with the planned schedule and to align with debt affordability. Next. As of May 31st, 2020, the available project balance was $1,177,000. Based on spending needs and the available project balance, we recommend reducing prior approved water bonds by $134,000 to eliminate excess contingency and overhead funds. This reduction leaves a 25% construction contingency for a child project that is in performance until December 2020 and leaves a 4% overhead. Arundel WTP EXP, the construction cost estimate for this project contained an error resulting in an overage of $250,000 in their cost estimate, including the impact on contingency and overhead. We recommend eliminating the error in the estimate calculation. Next. Broad Creek WTP EXP, as of May 31st, 2020, the available project balance was $11,248,000, and the administration is requesting an additional $10,263,000 in fiscal year 21. The construction contract was awarded for less than the original estimate. Therefore, we recommend reducing fiscal year 21 bonds by $700,000 to reflect the reduced cost and related construction contingency, with a leaving the 22.6 construction contingency as planned. Water meter replacement upgrade. The average annual expenditure in fiscal year 19 and 20 for this project was $1,773,000. As of May 31st, 2020, the available project balance was $1,077,800, and the fiscal year 21 request was $2.9 million. Based on the defined need, historical expenditures, and the available balance, we recommend reducing the fiscal year 21 request by $1 million. This reduction would leave $2,980,000 available for spending in this project. Next. AMI water meter program. This new project provides for the design, construction, and implementation of an advanced metering infrastructure system. The fiscal year 21 request of $1,754,000 will provide for the professional design and engineering services necessary to prepare documents from schematic design through contract documents for implementation of the AMI water meter program. The fiscal year 22 request of $1,176,000 will provide for the professional design and engineering services necessary to prepare documents from contract documents through bid documents for this program. The total fiscal year 21-22 request of $2,916,000 will provide only for design but not implementation of the AMI's program. The total implementation cost estimates are more in the ballpark of $63,800,000, which is not included in the capital program. Therefore, we recommend deleting the program until funding to complete the project is included in the capital program. Routine water extensions. As of May 31st, 2020, the available project balance was $311,100, and the administration is requesting an additional $265,000 in fiscal year 21. Based on spending needs and the available project balance, we recommend reducing the fiscal year 21 request by $65,000. This would leave $511,100 available for spending in the project. Next. Watershed Protection and Restoration Fund. This was probably the first year in many years that we've been able to really dive into the Watershed Protection and Restoration Fund. To give you a little background, they had some large projects in there funded, and then with the removal of the rain tax temporarily, they scaled back, and they're in the process of trying to figure out what projects they are going to be moving forward with. I would let the administration explain that a little better. So our issue with it is there are a lot of reserve funds and prior approved that they are holding on to for future projects, which may or may not come in the out years. So we only, we looked at high level and removed some of the larger reserves. In addition, when we were looking at their calculations, there were calculation errors in their estimates, which we also took. So they're basically two separate types of issues. So I will run through them now. Storm drainage, SWM infrastructure. The average annual expenditure for fiscal year 16 to 19 was $729,000. The administration's planned spending for fiscal year 21 is to mainly perform construction of the Cromwell Fountain Pond repair. They had also planned to use funds intended for right-of-way inspection and overhead for the Cromwell Pond repair and Javis Branch 3-stream restoration. As of May 31st, the available project balance was $7 million. Based on the defined need, historical expenditures, and the available balance, we recommend eliminating the fiscal year 21 request of $1 million. MRST03. I cannot remember what those acronyms mean. We have it somewhere if somebody wants to know. It has to do with categories and where they are, I think. This project is for the design and construction for stormwater management and infrastructure improvements. The Magathie River Mill Creek Outfall Steam Restoration construction contract estimate was calculated in error because it included the contingency from the design cost estimate and also added their own contingency. As a result, this caused an overstatement of the construction contract. and other costs related to that as a percentage totaling $94,000. We recommend eliminating this overage error in the estimate calculations. Next. As of May 31st, 2020, the available balance was $1,300,000. Although the administration has built-in contingencies within their latest cost estimates, they are also retaining an unidentified $415,000 in reserves that has been set aside to accommodate future construction costs or to transfer to other projects with insufficient funding in a future budget cycle. We recommend reducing the prior approved bonds by $415,000 to release this excess reserve. PTST01. This again is for design and construction of stormwater management infrastructure improvements. As of May 31st, 2020, the available balance was $8,492,100, and the administration is reducing the balance by $4.5 million in fiscal year 21. We recommend reducing the prior approved WPRF bonds by an additional $450,000, leaving $3,542,000. This is sufficient for the administration's planned needs for fiscal year 21. Next. PTOF02, another stormwater management infrastructure improvement project. As of May 31st, the available balance was $570,000. Although the administration has built in contingencies within their last cost estimates, they're also retaining an additional unidentified reserve of $415,000 that to accommodate future construction costs that they don't know. We recommend removing those funds. PTST02, the Salmon Creek Phase 1 construction contract estimate was calculated in error because it included 15% and 20% contingencies from the design cost estimates. As a result, this caused an overestimation of the construction contract, the related construction contingency and overhead, totaling $1.4 million and $11,000. We recommend eliminating this overage. Next. PTST03, as of May 31st, the available balance was $1,329,000. This had an additional $975,000 in reserve that hasn't been identified for a project. We recommend it be removed. PTOF04, as of May 31st, 2020, the available balance was $4.5 million, and this had an unidentified reserve of $350,000 that we recommend removing. Next. LPOF02, as of May 31st, the available balance was $5,873,000. Although the administration has built in contingencies within their last cost estimates, they are retaining an unidentified $230,000 reserve that's been set aside for future construction contracts. Usually things on the out years, if they are setting up reserves for the out years, you would bring in the funding at that time. So we're recommending that be cut. The little outfall construction contract was awarded for approximately $50,000 less than the budget estimate. And the overhead was budgeted at 6.3% of the total project. So we recommend adjusting for those excess funds and overhead as well. In addition, the fiscal year 21 request includes an increase of other state grants of $895,000 and a reduction of WPRF for bonds in the same amount to swap out this grant bond funding for the additional grant. The grant was only approved for $806,000. We recommend reducing state grants for the difference. Next. Okay, the administration, LPOF03, the administration overestimated its Crofton Gulf Stream restoration design change order budget by about $305,000 in error. Also, the overestimate is 5.2% for this total project. We recommend revising the overhead estimate to 4% to match the current, to be more reflective of the current rates. reducing fiscal year 21 bonds by $195,000. The administration agreed with the error and recognized the overhead was high. We were provided with an updated forecast, which removed the inspection contract budget totaling $520,000. We recommend reducing the WPRF bonds by $1 million. SEST02, as of May 31st, the available project balance was $799,700. The fiscal year 21 request is for $700,000. The administration does not plan to perform the Picture Spring Branch Stream Restoration construction until January 2023. Based on the defined need and available balance, we recommend pushing $500,000 of the fiscal year 21 request to fiscal year 23, and this would leave $999,700 available for their purposes. Next. The administration over SEOF01, the administration overestimated its Sampington Hill Pond retrofit construction change order by $90,000 in error. The administration recognized that the only construction change order was approximately $31,000. Therefore, we recommend a cut for the error. SEPP01. As of May 31st, 2020, the available balance was $1,011,500. The administration is retaining an unidentified $1 million in reserve that has been set aside to accommodate future construction costs or to transfer projects with insufficient funding in a future budget cycle. We recommend reducing the prior approved bonds by $1 million to release the excess reserve. Next. SEPC01, as of May 31st, 2020, the available balance was $1,676,600. The administration is retaining an unidentified $165,000 in reserve that has been set aside for future construction contracts. The administration's Lakeland Road outfit construction contract estimates totaled $433,400, which is about $260,000 less than the construction budget. Also, the Lakeland contingency for design was estimated at 32.3%. The administration informed us that the contingency should be 10%. We recommend eliminating the excess funds and revising the contingency to 10%. SOOF01, as of May 31st, 2020. Can't move this, let's see. The administration has built in contingencies within the latest construction cost estimates. They're also retaining an unidentified $775,000 in reserve that has been set aside to accommodate future construction costs. For future projects with insufficient funding in a future budget cycle, we recommend reducing the prior approved bonds by $775,000 to remove this excess reserve. Next. SOOF03, as of May 31st, 2020, the available balance was $698,000. The administration is retaining an unidentified $665,000 reserve that has been set aside to accommodate future construction contracts or to transfer projects with insufficient funding in a future year. We recommend reducing the prior approved WPRF bonds by $665,000 to release the excess reserve. WPRF land acquisition. This project allows for the advanced land acquisition at sites where future BEAT projects would occur or where floodplain prone and or natural resource rich properties can be preserved to assist the county achievement environmental regulatory goals. Funding is included for the demolition of the structures. The administration has updated the definition of the project to allow for the purchase of environmentally sensitive parcels and has not identified any acquisitions yet. The administration's plans to develop a selection criteria and evaluation program for flood prone or at-risk properties to be able to apply for acquisition. As of May 31st, the available balance was $1 million. There has been no expenditures to this project. The fiscal year 21 request is for $362,000. In the past, it has been the county's practice to budget for and acquire land as needed for specific projects. Therefore, we recommend eliminating the fiscal year 21 request and reducing the prior approved bonds by $500,000. Next. South Outfalls, as of May 31st, the available balance was $6,122,000, and the fiscal year 21 request is reducing this by $3,480,700, leaving an available balance of $2,631,300. Although the administration has built-in contingencies within their latest cost estimates, they are also retaining an unidentified $1.95 million in reserves that has been set aside to accommodate some future construction cost estimates or to transfer projects with insufficient fundings. We recommend reducing the WPR funds by an additional $1.95 million to release the excess reserve. Kingsbury Road stream restoration. The administration's steam restoration construction cost estimate totaled about $1,040,000, which is approximately $95,000 less than the construction contract budget. We recommend reducing prior approved WPRF bonds by $95,000 to reflect the current construction cost estimates, as the administration cannot substantiate the difference. I think that's it. Next. Any more? Oh, that's just the appendixes. So that concludes my presentation. I would like to thank the council and anyone else who has tuned in, listening patiently. And I hope you'll consider our recommendations. Oh, sorry. Let me see here. They wanted me to turn my video on. I again commend my staff for working through another year of difficult circumstances and sacrificing much of their private time. I ask that God provide guidance to the council and the administration when making what will be very difficult decisions over the next week and a half. And that is it.
Thank you, Madam Auditor. I know those technical difficulties were challenging, but we've gotten through it. Yes. We will be
taking a recess.
Do you have any questions for Madam Auditor at this time, or are we ready to recess for, Ms. Fiedler?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Auditor, I just had a quick question. On slide 44, the VLT fund increased by 15.22%. My question is, how did we come up with that increase? And are we considering the fact that lotteries are in the third phase of the governor's road to recovery? And I had an opportunity to take a tour of Live and see everything that they are implementing from a safety perspective. And they internally have I believe it's a 4-step process that starts with an invitation to return to a select amount of individuals. So their ability to get back to where they were in a quick amount of time, I question that, and just would like to understand that increase in that slide.
Okay, so the VLT lottery impact aid is a calculated aid based on something in the law that allows us to get aid because of the new lottery going in, potentially pulling revenues from us. So that's what this is about, I'm pretty sure. So each year they get an allotment, and they have a local development council that reviews, I guess, requests for funding, and they make decisions on the funding. They send their recommendations to the county exec. And the county exec doesn't have, it's not legally binding. The county exec can use those fundings for what he wishes, but as a general rule, the county exec usually will put into the budget those funds for the purposes recommended by the local development council.
Understood. I guess I'm just trying to understand how there's a projected increase.
I can look at that and see where that came from. I think that's
Thank
Kate.
you.
Yeah,
Yep.
sure.
Mr. Volkey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Auditor, Nathan Volkey, District 3, had a question about sort of just a high level question about your presentation. So in the beginning, you noted that you had rerun, it looked like the Spending Affordability Committee's recommendations on affordability of the budget based on the same figures that had been presented from the county executive. Did you get something new from the Spending Affordability Committee, or did your staff have to go back and recreate that? I'm just trying to understand the basics.
No, if you look at the Spending Affordability Committee's recommendations, they go through a calculation. Okay. And that calculation takes the personal income growth expected based on last year's revenue and projects what they should limit it this year. So it is simply a matter of replacing that personal income growth with different percentages and running the same calculation.
Okay, and so that's where you replaced their original recommended amount of 3.7%, substituted that with the 1% growth that the county executive was building his budget on. And so at that point, you noted that if the budget had actually been built on that 1% projection, we're $100 million over spending affordability. Is that right?
Right. Yeah, so I was trying to show, like, had these calculations been using different personal income, what the different variances would have been in light of the changes.
Okay. And so, I mean, that causes me a great deal of concern because I guess my question to you would be this: what are the issues that could arise in the event that we exceed the Spending Affordability Committee's recommendations by $100 million this year in a budget? What does that look like for us going forward? What are the ramifications of that?
Okay, so so each year we come up with estimated revenues, right? And the economists do what they think, and they come up with what they think the revenue projection should be, right? Then the administration looks at those recommendations and comes up with their own estimated revenues for what the budget can be. So if your budget does not reach your estimated revenues, right, you're going to be short. They do look at it on a conservative basis because it is much better to have more revenue and track at a higher level of revenue than to come up short. And that's basically, it's kind of like a guideline, I guess, of what they say, hey, you know, this is what we're seeing. The administration doesn't always utilize that guideline, but that's what the Spending Affordability is coming up with. And so I wanted to at least share with the council those different varieties of what could happen in light of the change in the economy.
Okay, so, Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Volkey.
Thank you. Nathan Volkey again, District 3. So, Madam Auditor, I guess what I'm trying to drill down into is this idea. Assuming that the county executive's projection of a 1% growth in personal income into the next year happens, and assuming that we now apply that, where does that put us next budget if we are overspending by $100 million in this budget, what we think could realistically be there in terms of next year's revenues?
So it would depend on next year's personal income growth as well. So, you know, if you're increasing your budget by more than the personal income growth, then you are going to start seeing the impact of that. The impact on the fund balance, the impact on structural deficits. That's what you'll start seeing. If that, you probably will have to cut budgets next year, you know, to come in line with the revenue estimate projections for next year. It's really hard for me as I've listened to a lot of economists, and it does seem very, everything is really kind of not really pinned down by anybody other than they expect to have some issues over the next couple of years. Other than that, there hasn't, it's hard for me to say exactly what's going to happen because they are estimates. So it could go the other, it could be wrong. So,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Do you have any other questions for Madam Auditor at this time? I do.
Madam Chair, I believe that we will be bringing in the budget officer, Mr. Trumbauer, to discuss when we can reconvene.
Yes, ma'am, I'm aware. I did want to note, in light of that conversation with my colleagues, I believe the administration did take into account revised downward revenue projections, correct, Madam Auditor?
Actually, yeah. So when they estimated their income tax, they did factor in a 4% decline. When they did their income tax projections, they said they factored in a 4% decline in personal income in fiscal year 20, and then a 1% increase in fiscal year 21, and calendar year 20, and then in calendar 21.
Okay, thank you.
When we do our estimates, we estimate we estimate income taxes ourselves based on trending in economy, and then we kind of try to see where we line up with all the major categories, and then we look at just the total. So they may be high in some categories, we may be higher in other categories, but if we're coming like kind of close in the bottom, then we, using their analysis of personal income growth, then we don't take issue with their revenue projections.
Okay. Do we have any further questions? No. Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Beecham and Mr. Trumbauer. Really all we need to determine is what time you'd like to reconvene as we recess for the rebuttal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Jim Beecham, Budget Officer for Anne Arundel County. I know we're scheduled for 1 p.m. Can we request that we make that 2 p.m. based on some of the technical difficulties we experienced earlier today?
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I have a motion to reconvene the council at 2 p.m. this afternoon, please?
Lacey, so moved.
And is there a second?
Rodvian, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none. The County Council is in recess now and will reconvene at 2 p.m. for the administration's rebuttal to the auditor's remarks on the FY21 budget. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Allison Pickard, Chair of the County Council. We are going to reconvene our final deliberations on the FY21 budget. At this time, we're going to do a quick roll call, Madam Chair. Madam Secretary.
Thank you for the promotion.
We can't hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me now? And I thanked you for the promotion. Okay, Mr. Volke.
Here.
Mr. Pruski.
Here.
Ms. Fiedler.
Present.
Ms. Rodvian.
Here.
Ms. Hare.
Present.
Ms. Lacey.
Present.
And Ms. Pickard.
Present. Thank you. At this time, I'm going to turn the program over to Mr. Trumbauer. He is representing the administration. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Council. Chris Trumbauer with the County Exec's Office. First, just let me say on behalf of the administration, we appreciate the good work that the auditor and her staff have done. My understanding is that the budget team and the auditor team have worked very closely together over these past couple of weeks, and I think we're seeing the benefit of that cooperation now. As you'll see in a minute, the auditor has identified many good cuts, some of which we agree with, some of which we don't. And Mr. Beecham, the budget office, will roll through those in a minute. I did want to let council know that we have other members of the budget staff in the waiting room and some directors in the waiting room if needed, but primarily it will be Mr. Beecham that will go through all of the cuts, and then we'll be available for questions or additional insight as needed. So with that, I'd like to thank the council and turn it over to Budget Officer Jim Beecham.
Thank you, Chris. Madam Chair and Council, good afternoon. I'm going to roll through our rebuttal. My name is Jim Beecham. I'm Budget Officer for the county. If I may, first I wanted to address, if I could, a question that Councilman Volke had asked earlier, see if I can clear some things up. A couple of things on the personal income tax projections. Keep in mind that we have a rate increase that's fully effective in this tax year that we're currently in. And FY21 will be the first fiscal year that benefits from the full 3 years of the rate increase. And I say 3 years because that's a crucial point to how income tax rolls into the county. The fiscal year number for our income tax projection is the sum of the income tax that comes in over 3 different tax years. Because of that half-year difference, and because individuals and corporations file their taxes in the calendar year after the tax year, and then there's also the reconciliation effort that happens as late as October of the subsequent year, income tax lays over, a fiscal year has 3 different tax years folding into it. So it's not just a single year snapshot that relates one-to-one with our income tax calculations. We did project a 4% decrease in our revised FY20 number, and the 21 number is a 1% increase over that revised reduction. So we're still confident in our projections. We have a good team here. We're monitoring things constantly, trying to keep up with the news and economists as best we can. We are still confident in our number. So with that, if it's all right with everyone, I'll move on to the administration's rebuttal for the general fund operating budget. I think Laura is going to put our spreadsheet up on the screen, and I trust each of you have received a copy of that. So this is a short 3-pager. I'm sorry for the small print, but if I can roll through these, you'll notice in the left column, the leftmost column, page number, that's referring to the page number in Madam Auditor's presentation. She's provided quite a bit of information on each of these and the overall view of the department from which these proposed cuts are drawn. So you can refer back to that page number to understand what we're suggesting here. So the first one, page 26, legislative branch salaries and wages, no objection to that. Central services, the building supplies, no objection. Central services, operating equipment services, that's from page 34, no objection. Finance from page 40, a $10,000 cut. That's no objection, but it wouldn't hurt my feelings if that stayed in. The finance office, if any department in the county is very good with math and with numbers, they don't put any fluff in their budget. But if it needs to come out, we'll work around it. Finance, again, from page 40, the $30,000 cut, we oppose that. There's a billings lag between the fiscal year of the county and the fiscal year of the federal government. And that accounts for some of these changes that we're seeing. And costs are going up, and we really need to retain that amount as budgeted. Next one, finance non-departmental, the PAYGO line item. We will handle that in the CIP rebuttal, no objection from the operating side. Finance non-departmental, the grant fund contribution, we do object to that. We can sustain a $130,000. I'm confused here with my own report. We have no objection to that. We can sustain $130,000 cut. The same goes with the next line item. No objection. We can sustain a $15,000 cut. The next line item for the contribution to PPI fund, we do oppose that. We are confident in our math on how we have come up with that contribution. The PPI fund is an important component to our CIP program. We need to stick with that. The Office of IT, we have no objection to that cut as shown on page 48. The other cut for IT, as shown on page 48, the object number 7605, we strongly oppose that cut. We really need to retain that. These are software licenses that OIT continues to maintain for the county, contractual obligations, and we cannot back off of those. Office of Transportation, the lease rate, we oppose this. This is going to come up maybe another time as well with these. The vehicle inventory information that we pull and the vehicle inventory information that the auditor pulls are snapshots in time. And sometimes those snapshots vary, but we're confident that that our number is correct. There's a one vehicle variance between the numbers that we're calculating and the number that Madam Auditor is calculating. Office of Transportation, for the replacement rate, same story there. We oppose that. It's just a difference in the timing of the report pulled to calculate that. The Office of Transportation, $700,000 cut. We strongly oppose that. That cut will reduce the level of service and perhaps even whole routes. We cannot sustain that sort of cut. The Board of Education, the self-insurance fund contribution, we oppose this. This would bring them below MOE unless there is some formalized reallocation in concert with this. The community college, same thing, the self-insurance fund contribution. We oppose that cut unless there is an organized reallocation of that. But we were very careful in how we calculated and how we earmarked the contributions to both Board of Education and to the community college. Moving on to library, that's from Madam Auditor's report, page 54, salaries and wages. We oppose this in part. The library has acknowledged that they can sustain a $25,000 cut, but not the full $100,000 cut. The next three line items related to that, we oppose those cuts. From the Centrex phone, $10,000, we have no objection to that cut. Library other professional services, we oppose that cut as well. For planning and zoning, this was a negotiated reduction, so we have no objection to that $100,000 cut. Training and seminars, $5,000 cut, $7,000 grant contribution, no objection. Inspection and permits, they're on Ms. Auditor's page number 59, salaries and wages, $11,000. We have no objection to that cut. INP for their lease rate, we do oppose this, and the subsequent line, the lease rate vehicle replacement, we oppose that as well. Similar reason as we described for the Office of Transportation. This is a matter of timing when you pull the report, and we're confident in our numbers. Department of Public Works, mowing, we oppose this cut. The bid that came back offered an option of the same number of mowings that we have in current service, and they also offered a price for fewer mowings. And when Madam Auditor suggested that she was taking the lowest bid, I do believe that was for a lower level of service, and we feel like the county needs to continue with the level of service it offers now. We do have the new bids in. We are looking at hard numbers here. This needs to stay. The last line on this page, Department of Public Works, snow removal services, we oppose that cut as well. This is these expenses are the retainer that we pay to the independent contractors that are on standby to help us with our snow removal. And this retainer keeps us first in line for snow removal. They're contractually obligated to service the county first and then move on to other of their customers. Each of them, and there's over 100 contractors we're talking about. So the dollars per contract are nominal, but we need to keep these contractors number one. We need to stay number one on their list so that our citizens can have the snow cleared from the roads as soon as possible. Moving on to the second printed page. Top of the page, Health Department from Madam Auditor's presentation, page number 78, medical services. We do oppose this during this time of the COVID crisis and pandemic. It seems awkward to think about cutting a cost for medical services. This is for mental health and dental health of our constituents and the nursing monitors. We need to keep that in place. The next 4 line items within the health department, we have no objection to those. Excuse me, they're not all in health department. The next 4 line items, we have no objection. One is health. There's one for social services, for other professional services. There's a big one for police department, 259,000, no objection. That was a duplication of math that contributed to that over budgeting. And the next line item, police department, copy machine supplies, $11,000. We'll have no objection to that. From Madam Auditor's book, page 85, police department, non-Centrix phones. We oppose this cut. This is a line item that it's not practical or reasonable to look at a trending pattern because we've added so many cell phones within the police department. And this is the calculated amount that we will need to support that effort. Next line item, communication services, $20,000. We oppose this. Many of the radios are no longer under warranty. The maintenance contract previously covered the radio project. We need to retain these funds to provide adequate communications for our officers. Police department, other weapons and supplies, no objection to this cut. The fire department, personnel and recruitment. We do oppose this cut. The fire department is endeavoring to continue to recruit quality personnel. There's quite a long lag time between the recruiting effort and the training class that they fall into. And they are emphasizing some of their recruitment efforts on diversity recruitment. And we really need to retain these dollars to support our fire department. Fire department copy machine supplies, we can live with that cut. Fire department communications equipment, we do oppose this cut. This is a maintenance contract that we need to have in place. Detention center safety equipment, $20,000. We oppose this cut. A lot of this is attributable to the new facility that is opening here shortly, the central holding facility, and we need new safety equipment to provide the detention officers safety they deserve. Detention center general office supplies, we oppose that cut again. Some of this is attributable to opening the new center. Need to supply them and have them operational. State's attorney, $20,000 in transportation cost. We do oppose this. This coming fiscal year is not a year that we would expect would work with trending from prior years. They're about to embark on handling one of the more significant cases in Anne Arundel County history. We need to support their efforts every way we can to make sure they have the resources to pursue that case properly. State's attorney grant fund contribution, $20,000. We do oppose that as well. That reflects our match for federal grants. So we need those funds to be able to earn the federal grants. And the last line on that page for the Office of the Sheriff from Madam Auditor's presentation, page 99, $10,000 for security systems. Here again, this is a situation where trending from prior expenditures wouldn't yield the proper number. This is the proper number for this. The security expenses have been incurred by other departments in a not consistent pattern, but the administrators of the court and our own central services feel like that these security system expenses belong with the county of sheriff, the Office of the Sheriff. It's their charge to maintain security for the courthouse, and the security system is part of their efforts to do so. Moving on to page 3, if you will. This is operating budget cuts to other funds. So the first one, Central Services Garage Replacement Fund, a proposed cut of $2,179,000. We are okay with a $2.1 million cut, so we oppose this in part. We have worked with Central Services and Police Department to dial this in, and we can accept that level of cut for that fund. Central Services Garage Working Capital, $20,000. We have no objection to that cut. Department of Public Works Utility Operating Fund, a proposed cut of $397,000. We oppose that. These are related to new OSHA requirements. This is the first of a 3-year phase-in for these. We need those monies to provide safety for our employees. The next line, Department of Public Works Utility Operating Fund, mowing, no objection to that cut. Department of Public Works Utility Operating Fund, operating equipment services. We oppose this in part. Madam Auditor proposed $299,000. We are willing to live with a $226,000 trim to that budget. Department of Public Works, the temporary pay, we oppose this in part. We can live with half of the proposed cut. So we can live with $52,000 and a cut of $52,000. The next line, Department of Public Works, pay-go, $360,000. We oppose this. That detail will be handled in our CIP rebuttal. Department of Public Works, again, utility, water, and sewer purchase, $440,000 proposed cut. We oppose that. This purchases capacity from partner jurisdictions, and we need to keep those efforts in place. We have a couple of WPRF fund proposed cuts. We have no objection to those two. We have a Central Services Self-Insurance Training Seminars. We have no objection to that cut. Personnel Health Insurance Fund. We have no objection to that cut of $15,000. The Personnel Health Insurance Fund, the bottom line from Madam Auditor's presentation, page number 107. The OPEB transfer, we oppose that. The OPEB fund was started more recently than the pension fund. The regulations have been changing. We are underfunded to a larger degree with this fund, and we are playing catch up. And to pass on this contribution just puts us that much farther behind. We need this $5 million in there to contribute to the principal and allow that $5 million to continue to earn over the next years, so that the fund can be more fully funded. For the operating cuts, should I pause for any questions that the council may have?
I can certainly ask my colleagues if they have questions at this point. I can't see them, but let me see if I can figure this out.
I'd like to recommend to council too that when we're on shared screen and it's difficult to see everyone, raise your flag, but also unmute and ask for recognition.
Madam Chair, Nathan Volke.
Oh, there you go. Mr. Volke.
Thank you. Mr. Beecham, I had a question. When you were talking about the state's attorney's budget, you mentioned something about needing money for extradition of the defendants, and then you further were talking about what I believe was the Capitol Gazette shooting case, which is coming up. How does one have anything to do with the other in terms of the funding here?
I don't recall using the word extradition in my presentation. If I did, my apologies.
I think it's in the comments. State's attorney transportation costs based on department anticipated needs for extraditing defendants, and what you provided.
Well, their budget will be spread in different directions this coming year, and we just need to be able to support their efforts as best we can.
Okay, but
this is a number that that Madam State's Attorney has provided to us, and we have no doubt in their need for these funds.
Right, but it sounded like you were trying to suggest that because they have the Capitol Gazette shooting case coming up this year, and that could be a very big major case in county history, that somehow one had something to do with the other. And I was just trying to understand how extradition had to do with that.
To the extent that the case may use funds from that same account, there would be less left over for the specific extradition purpose, is my assumption.
Okay. And then I also had a question for you on page 3. So we recently spent some time debating as a body whether to increase the limit, not even the amount, but the limit on what can be put into the rainy day fund. And it sounds to me like the administration is making an interesting argument that I heard was not something that the council supported with respect to the OPEB transfer, which is increasing the contribution $5 million over last year. There's an opposition to the cut. One of the things that I remember we discussed in talking about the rainy day fund was someone on the council, I don't remember exactly who, said something like, you don't want to put your last dollar into a savings account that nobody can touch in a year like this, when we've got all these major budget priorities. And this seems ridiculous to me that we would add any more money here. But yet it looks like that's exactly what the administration is asking for, and in fact opposing with this particular cut that the auditor has recommended and that the administration is opposing. So I know you all didn't say that, but I'm just curious what your thoughts are in terms of this budget and sort of where we are and how that makes sense from a fiscal standpoint.
Well, we're moving to an opinion position here. So at some point I may defer to Mr. Trumbauer, but let me say that the OPEB is not a savings account as such. That money will go to work and contribute to the retirement expenses of our retirees. So it's imperative that we catch up on that. This might be a particularly opportune time with the markets in the position that they're in to get invested. But as I say, that varies, that wavers off of your point a little bit. Can I defer to Mr. Trumbauer?
Mr. Trumbauer, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I take your point, Councilman Volke, Chris Trumbauer with the County Exec's Office. To me, there's a big difference between the Revenue Reserve Fund and the OPEB Fund. The OPEB Fund is a long-term liability. So, I mean, if the council wants to take this money out, by all means, you can take it out. But that just means that that liability is continuing out there and we'll have to make it up at some point. So this is really a policy decision for the council, but the administration at this point in time would like to continue to pay down our OPEB liability, as is the long-term plan. But absolutely, if you guys wanted to take this auditor cut to take that money out and put it to some other priority that you have, that's your prerogative to do. Just do that, acknowledging that that's $5 million more money, more deficit that you're adding to that long-term liability. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Trumbauer, am I reading this correct, that the current unfunded liability is $482 million? That's not a decimal point problem?
You're reading that the same as I am, but I would have to defer to Mr. Beecham to validate that number because I haven't the slightest idea what it is.
Okay.
I do believe that number came out of, this is Jim Beecham, Budget Officer. That number did come out of the OPEB CAFR.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have any other questions for Mr. Beecham at this time? Seeing none, would you like to proceed, Mr. Beecham?
Thank you, ma'am. We will proceed to the CIP, the capital budget, which is a 5-page document. I trust you all have received that as well. Again, the leftmost column refers to the page number in Madam Auditor's presentation for your convenience. The first item is Health Department demo building code health issue, reduction of some $450,000. We are okay with that. The Agricultural Preservation Program, we strongly oppose that. This is a continuing program that we need to fund. You're well aware of how these funds are used and the tenure of this program. We need to keep it viable.
And Madam Chair, may I jump in here for 1 second?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Chris Trumbauer with the County Exec's Office. Mr. Beecham is correct. I just want to add one thing. This category gets state funding, and if we were to take away the local funding, it would have 2 consequences. One, we could potentially lose our certification for the state program, but also it would jeopardize the potential to get future funding from the state. for future land acquisitions. So that's part of our opposition to taking this cut to Ag Pres. Thanks.
Jim Beecham, Budget Officer again. Thank you, Chris. I'm so glad you're here because I am very short-spoken, and I'm glad you're able to adequately defend our position when I'm focused more on the numbers. The next line item, the cut to the information technology enhancement. We strongly oppose to this cut. This would basically put us back in the Stone Age again. This is a continuing program that our IT department pursues with all strength, and we need to retain these dollars in this account. The next line item, the Brooklyn Park Senior Center expansion. We understand and will reluctantly not object to this cut. The next few line items, the next line item we are in agreement with, the fire equipment maintenance facility. We can agree to this only if this money is transferred to the advanced land acquisition. That was a suggestion by Madam Auditor. It will require an extra hurdle to go through council to have money come out of the advanced land acquisition, but I'm sure the administration will have confidence when that time comes that council will support that effort. This is a fire station that we need to pursue. And this looks like just an accounting change from the CIP to the Advanced Land Acquisition Fund. The next one is school sidewalks. We oppose this strongly. These projects are in design and their construction won't happen if we make this cut. The next line item, the Lakeshore Fire Station, we can accept the $30,000 cut. The next one, Jacobsville Fire Station. This is a partial agreement and a partial objection. We can agree to a $1.05 million cut, not the $1.2 million cut. Woodland Beach Volunteer Fire Station relocation. We can accept and not object to this cut. The police and fire placeholder, we have this marked as no objection. The Cape St. Clair Fire Station replacement, we understand that and no objection to that. The Zetron tone generator, we will pursue this. There was no recommendation by Madam Auditor to cut funding there, so we continue. That's a priority for us. South Shore Trail, we can accept that cut. The WB&A Trail, we can accept that cut. The Greenways Park and Open Space, we oppose this strongly. The project is funded partially with POS money, small amount of county funding, and these are the funds that allow us to draw on the POS funds. If I can turn to the second printed page, please. Hancock Historical Site, we will not object to that change. The Arundel Swim Center renovation, we will not oppose to that change. The water access facilities from Madam Auditor's page 121, Rec and Parks, we do strongly oppose that cut. These funds on hand are scheduled to be used this year. Project schedules already underway. The Randazzo Athletic Fields, we do oppose that. That project is under construction. We need to make sure we can complete that project. The Glen Burnie Ice Rink, we oppose any changes to this. We need to pursue this project. The expenditures will make sure that we can open this facility in a timely manner and operate it efficiently. The existing equipment may or may not fail before we can get ice down, and even if it does work for a day or two, the maintenance costs could greatly expand. For the next one, the Brooklyn Heights Teton Center, I'm going to refer this over to Chris Trumbauer, if I may.
Thanks, Jim. I'm going to presume that Chair is recognizing me, but Chris Trumeyer with the County Exec's Office. So this one is interesting because Madam Auditor is correct. There is an issue with this project. We were expecting some funding through the Baltimore Regional Neighborhood Initiative, fondly known as the Bernie funds. We've been in touch with Pam Brown from the Partnership of Youth and Families. That money did not materialize, and then it jeopardized other private funding. So this project is right now in jeopardy. But I just wanted to say this is a very important project for the community, and it's a very important project for the county executive. And so, to be perfectly candid, the council would be well within your rights to take this funding away. But if you wanted to leave the funding in, we would work to try and reset this project and get it back on track. So at the very least, I'd ask you to give us a few days before Tuesday's amendment session before you commit to taking this funding out. Let us see if we can come up with an alternative plan to save this project before it gets cut from the capital budget. So it's not a support or oppose, it's a work with us a little bit and give us a chance to come back to you kind of comment. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may resume, please. I am on the Quiet Waters Retreat, which is referenced on Madam Auditor's presentation, page number 123. This is a partial agreement. We can accept a $95,000 cut. We need to retain $30,000 in here as we go to close out this project. The Deal Community Park, the next one on the line. We oppose this. This would delay the whole project by pushing out the design. The Mayo Beach Park Improvement Projects, if Madam Chair will allow, I'd like to invite Department Representative Ms. Jessica Lays into the room, but I realize the invitation is yours to honor.
Of course, Mr. Beecham, we'll just give Ms. Lays a moment to be brought forward.
Good afternoon, Jessica Lays with the Department of Recreation and Parks. On the Mayo Beach recommendation from the county auditor, I wanted to kind of clarify this project a little bit and the requests of funding for this project. The $100,000 that was included in the FY21 year is to conduct a conditional assessment on the existing dwellings on improvements or new capital project at the Mayo Beach Park. And that's not what this project is doing. This project would take the $100,000 would do a conditional assessment. We would get a report. And then based on that report, we would have to come back to the council to request construction funding in a future year to do those renovations. So we're opposed to this cut. We would like to do that conditional assessment. Some of the buildings down at Mayo are over 30 years old, and it's time that we do a full and thorough assessment of them to make them safe and update them for the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lays. Mr. Beecham.
Thank you. The next project on my list is the Monterey Avenue sidewalk improvement. We accept the modification to this project as suggested by Madam Auditor. The next 2, 3, 4, 5, the rest on that printed page 2, dredging project, channel dredging, stream restoration, stormwater restoration, and then we get into a Board of Education school bus replacement, a Board of Education upgrade various schools, and a Board of Education additions. Those items on that page we are willing to live with. If I could turn to page 3. If I'm going too fast, I apologize, let me know. At the top of page 3, referring to Madam Auditor's presentation, page 130, the athletic stadium improvements, we can accept that change, as well as the change to the Old Mill Middle School South and the school playgrounds, the following Crofton Area High School. We can accept those. The PS Military Installation Grant, let me clarify further, that is the Fort Meade High School that was in the press recently. We can agree with that change. The next line item for the community college in reference to Madam Auditor's page number 133, campus improvements. We do oppose this reduction. The community college has been very good with managing their assets, and they have seen some change in their state grant funding, and they need this money to maintain their facilities as they are. The next line item, library renovation, we can accept that change. The Annapolis Community Library, we will accept that change. Riviera Beach Community Library, my notes show we will accept that change. When we get down to waste management, which references Madam Auditor's page 136, the subcell on the landfill, we can accept that. In terms of the next 4, which are wastewater projects, and the last 3 projects on this page 3 are water projects, we can accept those changes. You'll note in the bottom one, the fire hydrant rehab, we are updating the description page. It is not a fiscal change to that project. Moving on to page 4. The first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these, the top 6 of these are water projects. And we can accept those down through Madam Auditor's presentation, page 144. When we get to the water project, the water meter replacement project, as described on Madam Auditor's page 144, we do oppose that. We do need to be replacing these water meters. They are a little behind in replacing those, such that their normal 15-year replacement cycle, they're mathematically now at a 21-year replacement cycle. And water meters, as they get older, they slow down and register low. So in order to maintain the revenue and to be able to charge for the water that's actually consumed, we really need to keep up with our water meter replacement program. The next one, the AMI water meter program, this relates somewhat to the water meter replacement. This would allow for radio reads of water meters. This is initiating the homework on this project. AMI water meter programs are really amazing, and they're very important, and Arundel needs to stay on par with this and have the data available and be able to collect meter readings over the air instead of sending trucks out to read meters. The next line item, routine water extensions, as referenced on page 145 of Madam Auditor's presentation. That leads the rest of the items on this page, as we're willing to accept the cuts as suggested. So that finishes page 4. If we move on to page 5, this will be a quick page. All of those with the snazzy project names, we are willing to accept those changes. That is down until we get to the bottom 3. The WPRF land acquisition, as referenced on Madam Auditor's page 154, we do oppose that cut in that. This is an important project to be acquiring land that can contribute to our ability to manage stormwater, flood-prone properties, etc. The next project, the South Outfalls, we can accept the proposed program. And the bottom entry on page 5, Kingsbury Road Stream Restoration, we oppose this. The project is currently under construction, and we need to be able to complete it without worrying about running out of money before we're done. That concludes the administration's rebuttal in very short form for the CIP program. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer.
Thank you, sir. We do have some questions. This is Allison Pickard, Chair, District 2. Ms. Rodvian, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lisa Rodvian, District 6. This is a question that may go both to the auditor and the budget officer. On the capital side, you had running totals for both. Do you happen to have those? Because I don't see them on the printed page. And if you happen to have the running totals of the auditor's suggested cuts versus what the budget office, or I guess what the county executive office would agree to, you happen to have those?
I do not have those totals right at hand, and I know that these may differ from a total that Madam Auditor may have calculated previously, but we can get those numbers to you, Councilwoman. I'm sorry for that.
No problem. Thank you very much. I know you guys have to do this on the fly in a lot of ways.
Madam Chair, if I can just add, so the capital budget is a little bit more complex because there's different funding streams, right? So we get state money, we get grant money, we have PAYGO, we have bonds, we have impact fees. So that will need to be broken out, and I'm sure that our capital budget team is doing that, and we'll get that to you. But it's just not.
Got it.
In order to expedite, we wanted to do this.
Too.
Yeah.
We need it broken out. Yeah. Thank you.
It will also apply to the course of the 6 years as shown in the CIP. So we'll provide a breakout by year.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Ms. Hare.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have 2 questions. And the first, I think Ms. Lee's pretty much answered it, but I just want to make sure I understand crystal clear on the Mayo Park, because I've had a few questions from residents. This is for what I'll call I think she called it a conditional assessment and repairs to existing structures, nothing to do with design of new structures, right?
Jessica Lee's Rec Park. Yes, you're absolutely right, Ms. Hare. So there are dwellings that are currently on the property. It is things like the event building, the restrooms, the storage units, the walkways. We will assess all the existing stuff on the property. We will not be looking at new improvements or new buildings or even additions to those buildings. It is just an assessment of what's currently there to pretty much make a laundry list of everything that's broken, that needs repair, that is old or antiquated or is at risk for use by the public. Any additional future improvements would go through a completely different process. So this right now is just looking what's at the property and what can we build into a renovations project of the future.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I have one more question, but it's unrelated. So if someone else wants to jump in, I can wait.
No, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. And I think I forgot to identify myself before, but Jessica Hare, District 7. This relates a little bit to the Quiet Waters project. I think I heard in Madam Auditor's presentation earlier that the money we had spent from land acquisition was, we all know it was supposed to be reimbursed from Project Open Space, but then it sounded like maybe it wasn't. Was that actually reimbursed, or is that money still sort of, did it come out of land acquisition and that's it? We never did anything else with it?
Jessica Lee's Department of Rec and Park. So yes, we have a lot of money that we are still waiting to get from our partners. If you remember, we acquired the property for a little over $1 million. The Chesapeake Conservancy was a partner so that they could come in and operate out of the dwellings that are on the property. So we've received their $2 million. We've applied to the state DNR POS program for $4.8 million. 2.8 of that is our normal DNR land acquisition money, and $2 million of that was an additional state grant from DNR. That is still in process. It is a lot of back and forth. Right now, we've gone out and resurveyed the property. DNR had asked us to kind of divvy up the property as to what part did Conservancy's money pay for, what part did the U.S. Navy money pay for, what part is their money paying for. So as soon as we complete that survey and we give them that appraisal, we'll be on the schedule for the Board of Public Works for approval and then receive probably about 90 days after that. The REPB money was $1 million, and that is for a easement with the U.S. Navy. We've applied for that in February. They came out and did a site visit in March, and they tell us it's about a 4 to 6 month process to get all the internal signatures to then disperse the money to the county. So all of the money has been applied for. We're just now waiting to get through the bureaucratic processes of actually receiving the money. Once that money comes back in, it'll repay the land acquisition through greenways, and therefore we won't have any outstanding county money on the acquisition of Quiet Waters Retreat.
Is that repayment showing as part of the sum in the advanced land acquisition line item already, or would that be extra on top of what we're showing in that item now?
The fund balance and land acquisition does not show that we've received those funds yet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other questions for the administration on the capital budget rebuttal? Going once, twice? Okay. Again, this is Allison Pickard, Chair, District 2. Mr. Beecham, Mr. Trumbauer, is that the totality of your presentation today? Mr. Trumbauer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Trumbauer at the County Exec's Office. I'd just like to thank the council and auditor staff again and let you know that we are here to work with you over the coming days until Amendment Day. So I think that we've worked very well together to date. I think it's going to take us all a little bit of time to process all the information that was presented today, both from the auditor and for the rebuttal. And as you and your staff work to build amendments, just please know that we are here in a cooperative stance, ready to help. I'm sure that the council knows what you can put funds in by yourselves and what you need to partner with the administration to do. So I just want to let you know we're here for that conversation. So thank you. And thanks again. I want to give a shout out to Jim and all of the budget analysts for working hard throughout this season and working well with the auditor staff as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Auditor, to you and your staff for your hard work over the last month or so, and Mr. Beecham and the Budget Office. We will, no other questions, we will prepare to adjourn for the day and get to work. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Lacey, so moved.
May I have a second?
Councilwoman Rodbian, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Seeing none. This council is adjourned until Tuesday morning, June 9th at 10 a.m.